Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, May the 29th, Davis County Board of Commissioners meeting. And we'll start out with the invocation from Commissioner Jarvis, who will also lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Jarvis.
Our blessed Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the day that you have given us. We want to thank you about the reflection over the weekend that we've had, for all the ones that have given their life, the ultimate sacrifice, that we may be able to be here and enjoy the freedom that we do today and every day. We want to thank you for all the parents of those that have lost children. We thank you. We appreciate your work. Help us to do the work of the county at this time. Help us not to do anything that would displease you. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. In recognition, we're going to have, is Paula Langston? Paula, are you here? Okay. Are you, Paula? Okay, Paula is here as a representative of the election chamber tonight. Nice to have you, Paula. I also want to recognize, give tribute and recognition to a gentleman who was our past senator from Davidson County, Senator Jim Phillips, who passed away. I'd like to send our condolences to his family as well. We're going to recognize our Government Finance Officers Association with their financial reporting achievement. Casey, if you'd like to go into this, please.
We've got a recognition for our finance office, our finance department. Jane Kiker, as you all know, is the department head for finance. I don't know how many years, Jane, are you here? How many years in a row this has been? 30?
23.
All right. So it's been a long time. She gets this award a lot, consistently. And this is the same award we get on the budget side. So the Government Finance Officers Association, this is just recognition of how well we keep the finances in order and also how well we present it to them. So it's very easy for the auditors to come in and take a look and see what we're doing. So transparency is the key there.
Well, I know it's a prestigious award. Do you have anybody else in your department that's here, Jane? Well, congratulations, and you guys make us all look good, and we appreciate the job that you do. Thank you so much. If you have not already done so, please register to speak at the public address. Let me inform you that if you're here to speak on the budget, that will come under 8A, I believe it is. And at that time, we'll have a public hearing, and you're able to speak to address your needs for the budget or your opinions on the budget at that time. So anybody who wishes to speak about anything but the budget that would like to register a public address, please do so now. Okay, we have the adoption of the agenda item next. We got Reed Thornboard has requested that the Cardinal Dashboard presentation item 10C be moved to June the 26th. Craig Goodson has reported that Edgar has requested that agenda item 10F be removed from the agenda. Commissioner Crotts has requested that agenda item 10G, the resolution opposing the 30-day count, be removed from the agenda, and it will be placed back on an upcoming agenda, unspecified at this time. I would like to request that the closed session be moved to following public address. Are there any other changes for the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, do we need a motion to excuse Commissioner Crotts until he gets here?
I understand he is going to be about 15, 20 minutes late. Do we need a motion on that, Madam Clerk?
It's either way that you all want to go. Without him being here, the vote will show affirmative for him until he's excused. according to your rules of procedure.
Well, do we on the safe side, does anybody have a motion to excuse Commissioner Cross for?
I'll make a motion, we excuse Commissioner.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Verbally,
opposed?
please.
We might be out in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Well, I fooled him one time, just vote no.
Okay, all right, any other changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion second to approve the amended agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, please cast your vote.
You have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I thought I heard a second.
Well, I thought I did too, but
Yeah.
I missed it.
we got it.
Okay. Thank you. All of the votes are in. And that motion carries 6-0.
Okay, do we have anybody put to speak? Do have, no, can I have a motion second to go into closed session?
So move.
Second.
You want that on the
All in
clicker?
favor?
Verbally.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Oh, okay.
We'll be back on the
Motion come back into.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Second.
And a second to return to open session?
Already have it.
Okay,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Fry?
Mr. Chairman, in closed session, the board considered a matter involving economic development. It was for informational purposes only. and there was no action taken by the board.
Okay. Okay, next item is the proposed 2018-2019 Davis County budget. I declare the public hearing open. Casey and Zeb, if you'll lead us off, please.
All right, Mr. Chairman, as you know, statutorily required to have a public hearing for the budget, and this is the night for it, and we will take public input from folks that want to speak about the budget. We have a budget workshop scheduled after this on June 7th, which the board will deliberate and make adjustments to the budget at that time as they see fit. So that's where we are tonight.
Okay, Mr. Smith, anything else?
He hit it nail on the head.
Okay.
It's totally required to.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak at the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I believe I'd been notified beforehand that John Myers from the Board of Elections was wanting to speak tonight.
Okay.
Looks like several.
John, if you want to come on up.
Appreciate your having me tonight to address one brief matter.
John, if you would, and this to other speakers as well, if you would give your name and tell what department or if you're just a citizen who wants to express some concerns, that way we can keep a record of it.
All right, for the
Thank
record,
you,
my
John.
name is John Myers. I'm here in my capacity as the Vice Chairman of the Davidson County Board of Elections. I did have the opportunity to meet with the planning folks in submission of our budget for this consideration. But since that time, one issue has come up that I did want to bring to the board's attention, and that is regarding precinct officials. As you're aware, we have 43 precincts in the county. Each precinct statutorily is required to have one chief judge and then a judge of each major political party, so one Republican and one Democrat. And then on average, each precinct has around 6 assistants. Those are paid positions. The chief judge is paid at the rate of $125. The 2 judges, Republican and Democratic, are paid at $120, and the assistants are paid at $110. Each election, it seems that we are having more and more difficulty in attracting precinct officials, finding folks who are willing to commit to the process. Election day, of course, the precinct officials have to be at their locations by 6 a.m. at the latest. Usually they arrive before that. And of course, they don't complete until the evening, until everything is closed down. While the polls close at 7:30, it sometimes is 8:30, 9:30 before they get to leave their various locations. So I would like the board to consider what it may be appropriate for an increase in pay for our precinct officials in the county. If we add them together, roughly 387 individuals would be required to work a countywide election. During the municipal elections, the various municipalities reimburse the county for those expenses, so that would not factor into the budget that you would be considering. It would just be for the countywide elections, so the May and November countywide elections.
Could I ask one question?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Truill.
When you said $125, does that include the day that they train? Don't you have training also?
We do. No, sir. To fully inform the board, there are 4 additional activities that precinct officials are involved in. At the board office, we offer a laptop training. So when you appear to vote at your precinct and you check in at the laptop computer, that is a separate training. We have a separate training for the individuals who are working on the iVotronic machines. So when you are taking to a machine and your input and allowed to vote, that is a separate training. I conduct a training just in general for the election as a whole. That is usually the Thursday before the election. And then the Monday night before the Tuesday election itself, the precinct officials meet to set up. And so that is also a separate item. Each of those individual things are paid at the rate of $15 per meeting, regardless of how long they take.
Have you done a comparison of other polls in other counties that, what those workers are what they're making?
I have
as
not.
compared to us?
I would be happy to put that together and get something to you.
I just done the numbers here, and it looks like it's about $7.50 an hour
Yes, sir.
at the best.
That's correct.
So, there ain't no doubt in my mind we need to raise this pay up. I mean, you're not gonna find anybody to come in just for one day to work for that. So I don't know, like Mr. Chairman said here, either you can look and see what some other people pay, or you can try to figure out what a good rate of pay is and come back to us, and I don't see any problem at all in trying to give them some more money.
Any particular counties or jurisdictions you'd like me to check?
Our size.
Yeah, something comparable.
And maybe everybody's having the same problem as you and hasn't visited this in a while, so,
And I will say, the judges have to be residents of the precinct in which they serve. So the chief judge, the Republican and Democratic judges, each have to be a resident. The assistants can serve anywhere in the county. And that is the issue we had this year. We had assistants serving out of precinct just for a shortage of folks. But I will definitely check numbers, get comparable size counties, and kind of break it down for you by position and see how we fall compared to those others.
Is it the recommendation of the board that, Mr. Myers do so and, report those numbers back to Casey?
Yes, sir.
that's for me.
Okay.
Yes.
How about early voting? Does that pay the same wage, or how does
No,
early-
sir, for the early voting sites, both the board office and the satellites, they are paid on an hourly basis
Okay.
rather than a per event basis.
What is that hourly rate?
That I do not know, but Ms. Honeycutt is present if you want me to find out.
Yes, please.
That is $9.75 an hour.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, it needs to be in line with that or better from what you need on election day, because you're only needing them one day, so.
Yes, sir.
Do you check and then, report
I'll report
what your
back.
recommendations are back to
I certainly will.
Casey there, and he can bring it
And
to us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If you could get it back before our budget workshop, if you could.
Yeah.
That was June 7.
Yeah.
That's a Thursday morning, John.
I'll try and have something over this week.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
John. Okay, anyone else that wishes to speak on any budget matter?
Mr. Chairman, I know that Mr. Barney W. Hill had his hand up immediately whenever you asked that prior.
Okay, Mr. Hill?
On May the 18th, you advertised that the budget had been submitted for a public hearing that would be held on May the 29th. Here we are on May the 29th, and there is no budget. There is a 455-page doorstop that resembles a budget, but it was negated by what came at the end of the budget message. We were reintroduced to 6 stragglers from the retreat. Their status remains as unresolved as it was on February the 15th, but their price tag may exceed $297,360. A budget is a finished document. It is not fill in the blanks. The fourth item on the deliberation agenda is a report with the potential to turn your budget upside down, even if you had filled in the blanks. Obviously, anyone speaking on the budget tonight will be speaking without the benefit of knowing what is in that report. You should continue this hearing June the 12th, unless you are willing to announce tonight, number one, that the retreat items are off the table, and number two, that there will be no county bond referendum no matter what the report says. I would favor such an announcement. I renew my proposal from last year to apply to property tax rate reduction the proceeds from the sale of the home health agency and the so-called banked funds of the PBB program, and appropriate as much additional available fund balance as is necessary to lower the rate to 27 cents. Then the rest of us can join Project FOIL's celebration.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Anyone else like to speak? Okay. Uh-oh, here they come.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Kate Gentry. Tonight I'm representing the Thomasville City Schools. To my left is Dr. Emily Light, the superintendent of the Davidson County Schools, and to her left is Dr. Rick Kreisky, superintendent of the Thomasville City Schools. We will be using this time to talk together about school budgets and our requests. As I am new to the process, several weeks ago, myself and my finance officer, Mr. Scott Powell, reached out to Casey Smith regarding the process. During that conversation, we were basically informed we could expect a 1% increase, as that has historically been the increase given to the schools each year for several years. In your budget book, you will see that we planned to try to work within that 1% increase. However, with rising prices in lots of areas and with the release of Senate Bill 99 today, we would implore you to consider additional funding. Senate Bill 99 includes the 2% across-the-board increase for all employees. This would include employees such as teachers' assistants, custodians, and office support. The local impact for that, for just the Thomasville City Schools, is close to $30,000. The exact amount is $29,434.24. In addition, the 10% increase in required employee-paid retirement benefits from 17.13% to 18.86%, increases just for the Thomasville City Schools $25,460.62. In addition, the 4% in required employee-paid health benefits from $5,869 to $6,104 for the 36 locally paid employees just in the Thomasville City Schools is an additional $8,460, an increase of over $63,000 just for the smallest of the three school systems in our county. With the increase of 1%, the per pupil allotment does go up to $1,215.60. But with a decrease in per pupils, with a decrease in the ADM by 36 students, that is a negative $13,965 for the Thomasville City Schools. We would implore you to consider, with that negative balance, in addition to the money to be paid to charter schools, in addition to the burden that will be placed upon us for the raises, deserved raises, for our most valuable teachers, assistants, custodians, and office support, that you would consider looking at our 1% and making it a minimum of a 2% increase to support these additional fundings that we have just learned about today. I will turn it over to Dr. Light from Davidson County.
Good evening. I'm Emily Light, Superintendent of Davidson County Schools, and I just want to begin tonight on behalf of our Board of Education and the Davidson County Schools, thanking you for your support as we have completed the planning and building and are excited that we have opened a new school in Davidson County. We certainly could not have done that without your support. I want to, in addition to what Dr. Gentry shared, which of course Davidson County Schools will face some of those same challenges, but I do want to begin, we did share in our budget packet some of the things that we're really proud of. And, you know, as in all three of our districts, we're working very hard to do what is right and best for our students and ensure that they're prepared for the future once they leave Davidson County Schools. I'm happy to share that 28 of our 33 schools exceeded or met expected growth as required by the, or as judged by the state accountability model. We're especially proud of all of our middle schools. All 7 middle schools exceeded expected growth, and one of our middle schools, Tyro Middle, ranked 4th highest growth in the state. And these are things that our teachers and principals should be commended for in our middle schools. As Dr. Gentry shared, we too were impacted by the legislation as it relates to our local budget. We've talked for years about House Bill 90, and while we have a small reprieve, we know that we have to plan and prepare for that. With the K-3 class size phase-in, of course, Senate Bill 99, and for Davidson County Schools, the 2% increase to non-certified would be approximately $70,000, along with the average 8% increase to teacher pay. You have our budget, which it does include multiple analysis for the current year's budget based on projections. We have submitted 4% overall increase for salaries and supplements, 3% instructional and operational cost, and as well as other districts, we too are facing utility rates increase, hospitalization, and retirement. Specifically to Davidson County Schools, we are facing the projected enrollment of our students attending charter schools, which will lower our ADM. Right now, this is a local current expense exceeding $540,000. And one thing that I mentioned in some informal meetings in the fall, last year the state cut our cooperative and innovative high schools, which for us is Valley Academy and the early college, now for a total of 2 years at $233,000 in reduction. And our current request includes additional funding based on the reduction of that from the state. Our total spending just for Valley Academy this year in 2017-18 is $1.1 million. We have seen an increase in our students in transition of approximately 35%. These are homeless students as we provide transportation. These total expenses exceed $169,000. And finally, the last thing that I do want to mention, which is something that I know is a current concern for all of us, but for the past several years, Davidson County Schools has been operating well below the state average for a ratio of students to counselors. We're exceedingly well below what the American Association of School Counselors recommends, but we have made the decision this year with the rise in the mental health needs to use local funds to hire 3.5 additional counseling positions. And with this, we will be able to assist 7 of our schools supporting students in a time that they tremendously need that assistance for dealing with mental health issues. And while we were operating with a ratio of 400 students to 1 counselor, by adding these 3.5 positions, we will be able to reduce that ratio to be 1 counselor for every 368 students. So that brings us below the state average. And again, you know, we couldn't do things such as that, which are the best for our students to help them grow academically, socially, and emotionally without your support. So thank you for all you do to support us in Davidson County Schools.
Could you make sure that Casey gets a copy of all of your numbers and figures there, so we have something to work with?
We've got them, and they're included in the budget document.
Okay, you already got these?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got one question for Dr. Light right quick. What was the 200 and some thousand from the state? What was that
That was, and we had spoken about this in the fall, they cut us about $156,000 last year for cooperative and innovative high schools, and that wasn't shared last year at this hearing. And so it was $156,000 for the current year, and then we've also been cut an additional amount this year.
So what was their reasoning for taking that away?
Just state, that was just a state cut, and several of the cooperative and innovative high schools across the state received variance in cuts.
Was that a known cut that was coming in the future? Is that something that...
Well, I wasn't aware of it until maybe July of last year, but we knew this year as part of the proposed budget that we were going to be cut the same amount again.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say though, the county owns those two programs, students from all three of the districts attend those programs.
Yeah, pretty familiar.
Commissioners, on behalf of Lexington City Schools, I also would like to express our appreciation for your support, and especially I personally would like to express my appreciation for your support for the last 9 years, for you all and the commissioners that have come before you. I feel like that you do put the children's interest right at the top. There you have a lot of things that compete for the top, but you put the children's interest at the top in all three districts. So we certainly appreciate that. We also appreciate the teacher scholarship. Commissioner Krotz was at our student recognition assembly at the high school last week and awarded that. That is that's planting seeds for the future, and we appreciate that. You understand. We know that you understand the importance of growing our own teachers from within the county and in the city. So thank you very much for that. I also want to echo the other sentiments of the superintendents. Our expenses are growing. We all are involved in putting together multi-million-dollar budgets, not nearly as big as your budget, but they are multi-million-dollar budgets. And as you well know, every year operational increases go up, as were already brought up, salaries and benefits for our employees. You all are well aware of that. Obviously, we're going to have to consider the oil increases in our transportation. We're the biggest transportation, biggest transportation entities in the county, and also technology and inflation. So with that, I'm going to approach it from just a little bit of a different angle. And if you would glance down at that sheet that I passed out, as we all know, you all fund our three school districts by our per pupil enrollment, and that's been done for years, long before I got here. And you can see the increases over the last 6 years, from year to year, from 2012 to 13, and so forth, 13 to 14, and so forth. The increases for our per pupil revenue was $25 from 2012 to 2013, then $25 the next year, $25 increase the next year. You all chose to bump it up to $27 from 15 to 16, $30, 16 to 17, and from 17 to 18 it was $31. And we are very appreciative of that. But that just allows us to tread water. Those are our operational expenses. And so as we look at what is in the proposal for this year, it is less than half of what you gave last year to the students on a per pupil revenue basis. It's $13. And that is not, as the previous superintendents mentioned, will not allow us to tread water. And when we can't tread water, that's not going to be a good situation. I think we're all proud of the three school systems that are here in Davidson County. I hope we all are. But when we can't tread water, that gets us closer and closer to a consolidation issue. And we hope that that doesn't come. Lexington City Schools and Lexington is very proud of their schools and would like to stay independent. So if you could, please consider that. Our Lexington City Schools is requesting a per pupil funding increase from 18 to 19, not of $13, but of $35.31. And that was in our request that you all saw early on. So with that, I would say thank you. And again, personally, thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
I'd like to ask you a question, all three of you, please. Tell me about your enrollment. Is your enrollment increasing or is it decreasing?
Our
And are
enrollment increased.
you taking in consideration your per pupil spending based on the decrease in your enrollment? Or are you still using the figures of enrollment that you, what does that mean, huh?
We took into consideration, we will lose 36 students in our ADM for the 18-19 school year, which is a reduction actually, even though the per pupil allotment may have gone up. That is a reduction of close to $14,000 for the Thomasville City Schools, for those 36 students.
What part of that is federal?
Say that one more time.
What part of per pupil spending are you allocating as far as how it applies to the individual student on federal monies? Have you lost money there, or are you gaining money there, or?
Federal money stayed pretty consistent.
Okay. And so that means your indigent population is pretty consistent, percentage-wise?
Yes.
Right now in Davidson County, we know we're predicted to lose about 170 students if the numbers stay the same for the new charter school that's open. We've been working very well with their leader in taking a look at what areas of the district of our county are planning to attend school there. And so that will be a significant decrease for us in our total enrollment. And two, our Title I funding, based on our socioeconomic status, we are continuing to decrease in our federal funding through Title I as well. So I think it's a concern everywhere.
What is the cause of that, Doctor? Is it because our families been able to provide better now that we got less people that fall in that category?
I think it's a combination of all of that. I mean, I do think that we don't have the economic distress that we once had. I also think sometimes in families, especially when students get to middle and high school, it's an issue of pride, where either the students or the parents don't want to fill out the appropriate paperwork so that we can, and we try all different angles. Our social workers work very closely with the students when we see the lunch charges increase. You know, we're just working as much as we can. And I know for us in Davidson County, this will be something, too, that we can keep a closer eye on with the addition of our counselors as well. So,
do you think it would be a greater benefit to the three school systems if the appropriations, the federal dollar appropriations based upon indigency, were dispersed per student basis percentages? Because this seems to be the argument against consolidating the school systems. We're going to lose so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can consolidate the three school systems, but the truth is you hadn't lost one single indigent student. So are we going to be threatened with losing those funds other than the fact that they base it upon percentages, which is to their advantage? And nobody wants to challenge that.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, this is the way it is. No, it doesn't have to be this way if the people stand up and say, hey, that's not the way we want it. We want control of our school systems, and we shouldn't lose dollars because we want control of our school systems. Mm-hmm. But, you know, that's the way it is. But that's me shooting off, you know. Go ahead.
We increased our enrollment this past year, 75 students, and we had a number of students that came back to Lexington City Schools that had left to go to private schools, some in High Point, some in other places. But of course, we do have a new charter school that's going to be opening up this fall, and we don't know. We have worked with those folks, and the projections could be around 100 students. It would be our hope that while we want all parents to have their students, their children in the schools that they feel are best suited for them. If we have 100 students that go to the charter schools, we hope that just like this year, that we would have 40 or 50 or 60 of them return sometime during the year as they have this year.
Thank you. Anybody else?
One more Is that the same charter school that Emily was talking about? Or okay.
For, Dr. Light, you said you're losing 160 students, is that
At the last count, 170.
170?
And we've made contact twice and gotten numbers, and she continues to keep us updated. Because what we're using that information for is we need to know which particular schools, and the volume of students that maybe are enrolled there or plan to enroll as we start to appropriate teachers at those.
And that was my next question. Which school was hit the hardest?
Well, you know, that's been shocking to a lot of people. It's really been spread out throughout Davidson County. There's not one school or two schools where the percentage is very high. We have some students from most all of our schools that are interested. We continue to have conversations, and like I said, is June and the beginning and middle of June, I think that parents will make the definite decision at that point in time, and I think then we'll have a little bit more of an accurate count.
So you don't really know right now?
No,
exactly.
well, about 169, 170, that was the last count of students from Davidson County that had applied to attend.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You know, whenever we do budgets, we get a lot of requests, and we appreciate your requests and the work that you've done to put into it. My question is this: have you considered what the least amount is that you can function with, or is this the amount that you would like to have? And there is this difference in the two.
I would just offer Lexington City Schools' perspective, and that is that we will have to dip into fund balance, and as you all know very, very well, you can't continue to run operations by dipping into fund balance. That's just a
Correct.
savings account. So without more substantial revenue from state, federal, or local sources, then that fund balance will run out.
I would say with the increases we know that are coming, the minimum to use Dr. Kreisky's analogy, to tread water would be funds that match those increases so that we can cover the cost of local employee supplements that have to match the state employee supplements. So that would be a minimum of 2%. To move forward, it would probably likely be more like 4%. So 2% would mean we're treading water and we're not drowning, because that would match the minimum that we need to cover what we have to cover. If we're going to move the school system forward, it has to be more than that.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. And I would, our charter schools, we have not had a huge impact from the charter school that's opening in Davidson County, but the 36 students I mentioned are mostly attending charter schools in High Point and Greensboro. Probably because that's where we're located and it's a little more accessible.
One other question right quick. What kind of money do y'all have in fund balance? You brought up a good word a while ago. So what is each one of you guys' fund balance?
When our audit was done, it was about 2.2 million, but it would be significantly less because that didn't include, we're not at the end of this fiscal year, and we had to dip into that about 400,000 this year. And so you can project that for the next year or two.
Okay, so you think you got like a $2 million fund balance close?
Not when we get to the end of the fiscal year. We had that when we a couple months ago when we had our audit done. So you would have to figure in the around 400,000 that we had in that budget to help balance this year's budget.
Okay.
Our fiscal year audit, we were at $4.5 million, and you know as well from previous meetings that we've had this year that we were really planning to be very conservative this year with how much we spent from our fund balance, and I think we've done a great job. We've cut probably 30 teaching positions, although no one's lost their job. We've taken care of that with attrition and retirements, but we have been very cognizant, very intentional, very strategic in some of the things, and that's one that it's been a big focus of our board this year, and something that we've been charged with as senior leaders in Davidson County Schools, because we were spending at too great of a rate, as you're well aware. But yes, we have to use our fund balance we have for the past several years, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay. Y'all's fund balance was about, what, 28 million not long ago? 21?
as you may recall, in February, a portion of our fund balance was paid out. We're sitting at about $200,000 now, which is about 3 weeks of payroll for us. Fiscal responsibility would say we'd want about 3 months of payroll. We are significantly understaffed and will remain understaffed in our central office because there are several positions we are not going to hire. Those are very high-paying positions for the most part. And we are working very diligently with each transfer request, resignation, teacher retiring to make sure we are maximizing those so we are only filling positions that we need, that we have to fill.
So you only have 200,000 in the fund balance, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
I got one question for you. What would 2% in your budget, what amount of money would that increase?
No.
What is the increase of the 2% request?
This is not 2%, but our request was, as you saw on the sheet, $35.31. That would produce $109,000 for us.
$109,000, okay.
In addition to what's already been said.
He's working on it.
Dr. Crespi,
They would know that right off the top of their head.
Have you computed that to be what percentage of increase? 4%. 4%? Yeah.
Council, Commissioner, thank you for being here.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Motion to accept Commissioner Cross to the meeting?
That would add $27 to the pure pupil expenditure that we used, which was, what we used was a 1%, which would be $1,215.60. So that would increase that an additional $27.
I was looking for a total dollar amount. You're asking for an increase. We gave a 1-point-something% increase. You're requesting 2%. How much is that gonna add to your budget?
Let me do the math real quick. I'm a former English teacher, so
Okay.
you're gonna give me a second.
Mr. Beck has shared with me, our CFO, that would be about $460,000 for Davidson County Schools.
And what would that be? Was that your request? I didn't hear that in your request.
4%.
You were asking
Yes.
for 4%, okay?
And that would be right at additional $30,000 for Thomasville City.
30,000.
Y'all may have already went over it, 'cause I know, I got here late, and I'm sorry for that.
Do we need to, Mr. Chairman?
I asked for a motion
I'm
before
sorry.
he came in. I need a motion and a second for allow Commissioner Cross to back in.
I'll make a motion to
All in
accept
favor?
Commissioner Crotts.
Got a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right.
Is it verbally, please?
We did. Thank you. Have y'all already calculated in what you're gonna lose in revenue for the new charter academy, all three of you? Was that already brought to light?
That
Okay.
has been discussed already in this
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something, and it's based on what you just said, and I've heard this. I think two of the superintendents made this comment about money you're losing because of the students that are going to be Charter Academy. As you well know, the money follows the student. So how can you claim to be losing that money when you're losing the student? Because the money follows the student. So is it really accurate when you say you're losing this money because of the students that are going to the Charter Academy? Seriously. Do you understand what I'm saying? You will not be educating the students anymore, so why would you claim to need that money now?
You're probably not gonna have less teachers and you won't have
I
less
will
billing.
say for us, it all calculates into operational cost. I mean, regardless of how many students we have in a building.
But do you understand how
I do
it's a little bit of a
understand.
misnomer when you say you're losing money because you're losing the students? That's that many less students you're going to be educating.
You're right. But I do think, like I said, I can only speak on behalf of Davidson County Schools. I do think that comes into operational cost. And
It does.
you're right.
You're not gonna lose, operational expenses.
No, and as we lose students, then we are being very diligent, as I mentioned earlier, this year with our teacher allotment and making sure that our teacher allotment is in proportion, based on the state's recommendation, and then we even have a higher average in our schools. And another thing too, I just want to point out that we're really focusing on this year, we do have a new executive director of communications, and she's doing a phenomenal job with helping us with some of the things we talked about earlier in the fall, which is marketing our schools. It's why Davidson County Schools is the best choice for the students that live in our attendance zone. So we're working. I feel like that we're doing all we can do on our end. And again, we just really appreciate y'all taking the time tonight to ask these questions.
Absolutely. Just to emphasize the operational, our buses will still run the same number of miles.
Yeah,
we'll still have
that.
the same number of cooks and so forth.
I got one other question. Do y'all have, any schools that's underpopulated?
Mm-hmm.
And when I call underpopulated, I mean,
Lexington City does.
you do not. Lexington City does not. Does Thomasville have any underpopulated school? And Davison does?
We do.
How many?
We're working on that.
How many?
I would say 3.
3 underpopulated schools? Okay. It's good to hear that Thomasville and Lexington don't, though. I mean, that's a good sign, and I hate to hear that Davison does, but.
We're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions of these folks? Thank you. Thank you for what you do on behalf of our children. Okay, anybody else want to speak, with regards to the budget?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Eric Morrow. I'm the current chief of the Davis County Rescue Squad since February. I just want to thank you for all your support that you've given the Rescue Squad in the past, and any support that you can give us in the future. The Davidson County Rescue Squad is a volunteer organization. Volunteer means we expect nothing for our services. We are the oldest all-volunteer rescue squad in the state of North Carolina. We were established in 1941, and we do not get paid anything. Everything that we bring in is from donations and the support from the county. Right now, we cover and serve 60,000 of the residents in Davidson County. There's 162,000 residents in Davidson County. We serve around 60 in our area. We are one of only 3 heavy rescue departments in the county. And that's all we do is we rescue. And when you say rescue, you mean to remove from danger. That's what we do. We don't fight fires. We remove people from danger 24/7. We don't just serve the residents of Davidson County. We've got 13 major highways that run through Davidson County. The main highway, I-85. We also are the host of the biggest one-day event in the state of North Carolina, which is a barbecue festival, and 250,000 people come in. Our guys do not get paid to stand by from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock. We do it because it's a calling. Our heart is in it. We have specialty services, heavy rescue, swift water, still water. We are an ambulance provider. And there's only a couple departments other than ours that have certified ambulances in Davidson County to back up whenever Davidson County EMS is out of ambulances. We have 15 rescue squad vehicles. We have a total of 2 rescue boats. They don't fight fire, they do rescue. We've got 8 flat bottom boats. We've got the most rescue boats in any rescue squad in North Carolina. We're asking you to continue providing us with the funds. We're not asking for a bailout or a handout. We're asking you for your support. Last year, Mr. Crotts made a motion to give us additional funds. And, that was up to $50,000. And Mr. Shell, you seconded, and there was a discussion. And there was concerns over our records. Myself as chief, my deputy chief is also our president of the board, and Christy Thompson-Leonard is the president of the board. These records have never been so transparent as they are right now. Pop Hodges is doing the books with Myers and Turlington to make sure that trust me, with Pop and Christy and Danny, every cent is accounted for. As long as I'm wearing this badge that says chief, these records will be kept like this. I can't help what happened in the past. I can look to the future, and I thank you for all your support.
Chief, you got rid of, transport, right?
Yes, we did.
I think that was brought up by one of our
That was a service
commissioners.
that we started to try to help supplement, United Way cuts and whatnot, also to back up the county when they did run out of ambulances, and to transport the elderly. I'm sorry.
Senior citizens.
Senior citizens from the hospital back home. That would, untie an ambulance from across the street, an ALS ambulance, to be able to take care of that. That was with Medicaid and Medicare cuts. That really hurt us. So we had to do away with that. And that, like I said, that really hurt us, and we're coming back from that. And we are coming back from that.
Do you also transport to the VA hospital?
We do not.
Do not?
We do not transport to the, Davidson County EMS does not transport to the VA.
We do
Those
now.
are private services, such as New Carolina, and Winston-Salem has that. Now, you got to be approved to go to the emergency room at the VA.
Correct.
Okay.
It's 72 hours, I think.
That's correct.
But we we have started our new policy. Yes, we do that with after making a call first to make sure we've got the.
Exactly. You got to call over there first and get it approved for Davidson County EMS to transport.
Thanks, Chief.
I'm Danny Sams. I'm Deputy Chief, also the President of the Board. Like Chief Morrow talked about was, after meeting with the commissioners and our county manager and our assistant county manager and went over through some stuff, is we come to the decision to shut the net down when we realized that we were going down. And through y'all's support there, we was able to shut the net down. And since then, our budget has helped a whole lot there, but it still takes the support of that. There are several things that we've done this year. One that was recommended by y'all was put 2 at-large board members on that are not squad members. That one of the board members is Richard Green. The second board member is Terry Shove. Both of them are residents in Davidson County and good men that have sat on that board with us to help us bring it back to where it was. Like I said, for the county that is supporting us the way that we have, we wouldn't be in operation now. Like I said, we're the oldest and continuous rescue squad in the state of North Carolina. We've reached out to Thomasville across the river. Some things happened in the past through that connection there, but since I've been chief for 2 years and Mr. Morrow stepped up for this year as chief, we went back to Thomasville, and there's good working relations with them across the river. If we need something from them, they're coming over. Vice versa, if they need something from us, we go over there and help them to keep the rescue squads operating in Davidson County to cover the need that the citizens here in Davidson County need. I appreciate everything that y'all have done, and everything that y'all will continue doing. And thank y'all for everything.
Eric, didn't Rowan County Rescue take one of your vehicles and refurbish it for you guys for no cost?
Yes, sir, they did.
Okay. Do you know how much they spent on that roughly, or about what the cost was?
They actually did, I don't believe they spent anything on that. That was parts left over. And that is now being used. That vehicle is now being used for anything that I deem it necessary to be used for. We got it certified the day that it come back from Rowan County. The items that it needed to be operated as a QRV, quick response vehicle, was placed on it from the items removed from the ambulances. Mm-hmm. So it can be a QRV. It could be used to pull our boats.
Right.
The Ladies Auxiliary, which I have to give a shout out to our Ladies Auxiliary for all they do too. They were very instrumental in the rehab of the largest fire that has ever happened, I believe, in Davidson County. They were there. They set up rehab, and donations started coming in. It could be used to pull that trailer as well. Boats, gator, anything that we deem it necessary to be used for.
And
aren't
you Davidson Rescue, Thomasville Rescue, and I think it's Arch working on a joint task force training? Okay.
We are.
So you are getting collaboration with fire departments as well?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
We have a great working relationship, like I said, with Rowan and Thomasville, and we're with West Lexington Fire and Rescue. And I reach out to every Linwood Volunteer Fire Department. I just talked to Chief Leonard the day before yesterday and told him anytime he wanted to do some joint training, give me a call. I gave him a card because we were working great with all the other agencies.
Okay. Thank you.
And I have a question. What kind of equipment were you using for transport?
What kind of equipment?
Yeah, how many units were you using?
We had 4 North Carolina certified ambulances, and right now 2 of them are running. We are in the process. We're going to keep 1 because we go to the Charlotte races, and to keep our ambulance provider. So we're in the process of trying to figure out which one of those that we want to keep. And then we're going to be surplusing the rest of those out to try to get some of our money back that we lost when we were losing the money from the transport service.
Now, that was my question is, do you have any idea how much money you'd be able to recover from those?
We have no idea. We have a phone number of a man, I believe, in West Jefferson that takes ambulances and remounts them like they do over here at Davidson. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, like I said, we can get some. I have no idea how much we're going to get from them.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman. What is y'all's fund balance now? Do you know?
Our fund balance?
What do you have in the bank account, checking account?
I'm over operations, but I'll turn it over to somebody. Go ahead.
I'm Christy. Today it was $18,009.27.
Okay, so does that keep increasing now? Because the last few years, and I've probably been the one that was saying the ambulance business was losing the Davis County Rescue a lot of money. I could look at it on the books and see that y'all's losing 50 or 60 a year, easy. And I kept trying to say, get out of this. But anyhow,
we took your advice.
All right, well, not saying I told you so, but do you see your checking account now, you're being able to operate and increase your budget?
We're operating on a very minimal budget. We're back to our roots of volunteers, and we don't have a whole lot of bells and whistles, but that's what we set out to do by closing the net, was to get back to where we started and what the county had grew to respect of us and expect of us. We have an agreement with the bank last year this time we were about to lose our main building.
That's right.
And we have an agreement with them giving us until March of 2019 to have that refinanced. We haven't missed a payment. We've been able to pay all of our bills. We had a fundraiser last weekend that was very successful. And we have, lots of folks that rent our building, so we have income from that. So we're minimal.
So things are looking up though,
Yes.
you don't see, okay, because that was one of the reasons that we felt like we couldn't give you any money because we didn't know if you was gonna survive another
And we totally
month or not,
respected
so-
that, and that's why since last June, we've made it, our mission was to make you all believe in us again, and we've made all the changes that you asked us to make, and then some. And Commissioner Crotch, Commissioner Shell, Mr. Yates, all of you have been very supportive of us, but Zach has gave us such great advice and has attended our meetings and showed us, you know, where we needed to improve. We've got our 2 at-large board members. We have Myers & Myers, our CPA. They write all of our checks. They have open access to our bank account. Everything is ran very tight ship right now.
Good. That's why I see it. So you have their financials, right, Casey?
Yes, sir.
You have their current financials? Okay.
We had asked for 50, and like I said, that is realizing that we're going to be selling vehicles. We're going to be taking vehicles off of our insurance. We will no longer have as many folks on workman's comp as we had before. So we're realizing it's going to take us a little bit of time, but we are going to be able to cut a lot of those expenses. We're trying to decide, working with the city, to determine our building that housed the net, because we were leasing that building from them, but instead of them paying us yearly, they just let us have the building. And so now we're trying to decide the best use of that building on Cotton Grove Road, because we're having to insure it and heat it. Right now, it's housing our equipment until we sell it.
All right. Okay. Y'all have done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner McClure?
You say you stand by up at the barbecue festival?
Yes, sir.
How much they pay you?
They don't pay us nothing, sir. We've been there from, like I said, 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock. You'll see a green shirt or a white shirt that says Davis County Rescue Squad.
I would venture to say that there's enough money made on a barbecue festival that they could contribute something to the rescue squad.
And I believe you're right, and if there's any of you that could help us out with that, but like I said.
Well, if you
like
don't
I said,
show
we're
up,
volunteers.
you might get a lot of help from them.
Right.
I mean, you know, you can't get a police officer or a deputy to go someplace unless you pay them, so.
No, sir, they get 20, if I'm right, the deputies, and I might be out, you know, stepping, but they get about $25 an hour. And we have, a couple of years ago, we had about 10 people. I can say that, Ms. Leonard said that we had a barbecue chicken dinner the other day, and I thought, up until that point, you just put a piece of chicken on a grill, huh? This took all day and all night. We were up all night cooking these chickens from 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was very successful. We sold every one of them, and you know, if you didn't get one, when we have it again, I urge you to come. But to answer your initial question, no, we do not get anything from the barbecue festival, and we're there from the time it starts, before it starts, running our trucks, running our gator, and running back and forth from one side of Main Street to the other to be here for the 250,000 people that come in to enjoy the barbecue festival.
Does the Charlotte 600 request y'all to come?
I believe they do. If I'm not mistaken, us and the Gumtree Fire Department. And I don't believe we were contacted this year. If the person that was in charge of this, Mr. Munson, is under the weather, and prayers for him. One of our squad members, he's been very sick, and we love him dearly. And I think with everything that was going on, this has slid by him. But yes, we do go to the races. That's why we have to keep one of our ambulances to go to the races and to keep our ambulance provider license and to back up the county.
I understand that, and I appreciate all the things that you do so far as running to phone emergencies and things like that, and we expect that. It seems like that you're missing an opportunity for income by charging something to show up and spend your whole day out there, and you're doing it for free. And it's not like it's a non-profit event. Neither one of them, both of them are there to make money.
That's right.
Yeah, the ones of us that do go, we stand by the whole time, and they don't even give us a sandwich, you know.
Sounds to me, when Commissioner McClure made that comment, that you need to be selling chicken at the barbecue festival, not just standing around, you know? I mean, that would be a great opportunity for you to raise
To
money.
answer Mr. McClure's, question, I've been in the squad for over 35 years. Up to last year was the first year that we had ever charged the schools. We've always done that, stood by at all the football games. The school's administrator called us. What happened was, up at the northern end of the county, the fire departments were charging the school, and Elmore found out about it. He called all the ones that stand by at the football games, and we all come up with a recommendation. Last year, we got paid to stand by at all the football games, $60 a truck and 2 men. They had to be EMTs, so we did get paid by the school system.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is we provide the school systems with money.
And so that was the first year that Davis County Rescue Squad, because I was iffy at it to begin with, and Elmore said, no, said it's not right to pay some and everybody doesn't benefit from it. But we have to come up with a thing. And what the Davis County Rescue Squad did, they stood by at all these football games and any of the standbys that they had, the track meets or whatever. The coach would sign that, and at the end of the season, we invoiced them, and then the school in turn sent us revenue back for that.
Thank you.
But that was the first thing that it's ever been charged, Ms. McClure, on anything that the squad has done that I know of.
But in defense of Lexington, didn't they say that, don't they give you a building? Doesn't Lexington let you use their building or something?
The city of Lexington?
Yeah.
They used to appropriate us some funds every year, and previous to our taking over, instead, when we started the non-emergency transport service, a deal was made out, instead of giving us the money that they were going to give us the old fire station 2 over on Cotton Grove Road in lieu of the money. And so right now, without having the NET program in operation, we're just trying to figure out what to do with that building right there.
Oh, is it your building now then? I mean,
not our building. We still have 5 years not to quote pay on it, but for our lease or whatever.
So they give you a lease free on it for what you do.
Furnish a service, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To provide the services.
Okay.
In lieu of them giving them money.
But
they give
then
them a
you're
building.
talking about you don't get paid for the barbecue festival,
Festival.
so you do get a little pay out of it this way.
Yeah, I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Lexington doesn't make anything on the barbecue festival. It costs Lexington money.
Okay, but
For the
what I'm
barbecue
saying, you
festival.
said they did it for free. They don't do it for free.
No, not the building,
That's right.
not the building.
Yeah, but-
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
But I believe the building was for the non-emergency transport, is that correct? So now that you're not operating a non-emergency transport, then you've got a building that you gotta figure out, and you gotta work it out with Lexington City as to, can they take the building back and start paying you money, to offset cost?
Yeah,
But-
we asked them about that, and they don't support any more 501c3s. So they said if we give the building back, that they would not start giving us the funds that
Right.
instead.
Okay.
What were they giving you all a year? I'd like to know that.
$6,800.
$6,800 a year?
Yeah, $6,800 a year to operate.
But then you could charge them $6,800 to do the barbecue festival.
Like I said, we got investment in that building, when we got that building, more or less, it's not leased. It was, thing that we would keep it up. We would have to keep it up for, 12 years, ain't it, Chris? Lease to purchase for 12 years. there was no money ever swapped other than we had to pay $10,000 down and get the papers drawn up.
Understand, thank you. Just got 5 years left of that, so.
There's 5 years left on that,
You're
and the building is ours.
definitely in a good position on that building, yeah.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Dot? Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Okay, anybody want to speak on anything else on the budget? Okay. I declare the public hearing closed. Further discussion on the budget will be scheduled for the June 2018 informational meeting. Okay. Our next item has been pulled. The rezoning by Landing Grant and Lexington has been pulled from the agenda due to a legal notice by the dispatch not being. Mr. Corman, you guys want to say something on this?
I was just going to ask you that you continue this matter until June the 12th at 6
Okay.
p.m.
Which one is it?
Okay, I need a motion to continue this.
On the clicker, I'll make the motion.
I got a motion, do I have a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cast your vote.
Fred, I think. Was it you? You make the second?
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
This take two motions.
Yeah.
Flip coin.
I thought I did.
All of the votes are in,
We'll find that up here on the screen.
We can have more than one motion.
and that motion carries 7-0.
What happened to the
Okay,
screen?
is there any items to remove from the consent?
I'm thinking I created another issue,
Okay.
so I'll fix it again before we come back.
Oh, I'm sorry, was something, someone asked something? All right, are there any items to remove from the consent agenda for discussion?
No.
Can I have a motion and second to approve the consent
So moved,
agenda?
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Please cast your vote. Do I have a second?
Got a second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
All of the votes are in, and that motion carries 7-0.
Okay, items for decision. We got award of a badge and service Western, Mr. Nightfall. If you'll step up, and Dwayne Childers, if you'll take care. Where are you, Dwayne? There you go. You too quiet back there.
Dwayne, sorry, I threw you under the bus just to explain what we're doing.
You
You want
just
me to take
explaining
it?
what we're
I'll see
doing
what-
with
Formality.
At the last meeting, Commissioner Crotts asked that, for recognition purposes, our retiring officers that are awarded their badge and their service revolver, that the board would like to have them come up here to congratulate them and thank them for their years of service. And so that's what this part of the agenda is about, is to thank Officer Nifong for his service to Davidson County and all of his contributions.
And Mr. Childers handles surplus, is that correct?
surplus property.
Surplus property?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
You're
Somebody
telling
else
us-
threw your name on there.
You're gonna give us the statute number that we go by for this?
Yeah. Todd, I've known you a lot of years, congratulations, and
Thank you.
we hate to
Was it
lose
20 or
good people.
30?
20,
Well,
30?
22 here with the county. I was at High Point for a few years, so, 22 here actually with the county.
Congratulations. Anybody else have anything to let us?
Yeah, real quick, I know that there have been some concerns about how I, said that at the last meeting. You know, right now in today's society, we always hear, issues about police officers, law enforcement. And I'm a firm believer that we have to stand behind each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen. I can't thank you enough for your service. I'm a big, first responder and law enforcement supporter. So I wanted to allow you the opportunity to come before the board for us to personally shake your hand and thank you, sincerely for your service to your county, state, and country. So, thank you.
Mr. Cross, I appreciate it, and thank you to all of you. And, Mr. Chairman, if I could respectfully just ask a quick question here.
Certainly.
I know I'd talked to Ms. Harris by phone, and she was.
You want
kinda
ammunition
explaining
too?
The process, pardon?
You want ammunition too?
Oh, well, yeah. No, my coworker here, Lieutenant Thompson, I know she had come here, and I didn't see her name on the agenda, so she's already been taken care of
She
it.
was, Mr. Crotch, you could call her forward. She was the one that you actually made the request
Yeah,
for.
Lieutenant Wanda
She's
Thompson.
sitting back in the.
Well, by all means.
Now, this is a fiery, mean woman right here.
Well, I was about to say, whatever she wants to do, you're more than welcome, because I ain't gonna tell you no.
40 years is enough.
Yeah, congratulations, and it's a pleasure to know both of you guys.
I'm gonna miss a lot of people in Davidson County. Thank you.
And I'm sure they will miss you too.
I'm not sure that's exactly what
hey,
they
let me
would
tell you,
call it.
she is a control person. Todd tell you that. She is a control person, and she knows how to do the job. Both of you done a great job. Can I have a motion second to approve award?
Motion.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Motion here.
Can I have a motion?
I made one.
Second. We got a motion, I got a second. Motion by Commissioner, McClure, and second by Commissioner Yates of the award of the Corbin Knife Arms Badge and Service Weapon. Okay, cast your vote.
Appreciate your service.
All of the votes are in.
Go ahead and get a handshake.
That motion carries 7-0.
Steve. Don't be a stranger.
Thank you, Lieutenant, appreciate your service.
Thank you.
That's the vote.
That's what,
Yes, I did
that was
correct.
worth it.
That motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we have presentation of Uptown Lexington on design work at the square. Rebecca, Counselor McGee. Lead this off.
Second, just give me a second. The one you can't see makes it go forward.
I was gonna say, that did look like
Wait
a
a
good
minute.
park.
Let me have the little piece on the
That
end.
did look like.
Running off my laptop.
This one switch.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca with Uptown Lexington, and I'm really, really excited tonight to be here for you. We've gone through quite a long process to bring this to you tonight, about 8 months since we were last requested to look at the Conrad and Hinkle Square only. And we have some designs tonight, conceptual designs for you to look at and hopefully move forward with the next step in the process. I have with me Lynn Raker, who was instrumental in this process of creating the conceptual designs, and I'm actually going to turn it over to her to kind of explain the process that we went through to come to these conceptual designs and give you that. So I'm going to turn it over to Lynn, and I'll be here for any questions or probably to pop in as well.
Okay, which one is this?
That one.
Just forward it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Commissioner Shell and Commissioners. Chairman Shell, I should say. Again, I'm Lynn Raker. I'm a landscape architect. I worked for 20 years in Salisbury as the urban designer there. I lived for 38 years on Ridge Road in Davidson County, so I am very familiar with Davidson County and with the square. I want to mention that I had a partner in this process, and that's Augie Wong. He's the principal at CMW Design Strategies in Charlotte. He was unable to be here tonight. But I do want to share what we came up with because we're pretty excited, and I want to talk very briefly about the process because the process is important to getting something that the public, the community really wants. We tracked the folks that showed up to a public input session. We had one evening several weeks ago, and we represented in that session just about all parts of the county except for the eastern sector. We didn't get many from the Thomasville area, but we went down to High Rock Lake and we went up into the Arcadia area too. During the session, we talked about how iconic this property is in terms of urban design. A lot of towns have squares, like Salisbury has a square, many towns do, but it's not really a physical square. This is very important, and Lexington is very fortunate to have this, and fortunate to be able to play that up as their focal point for their town. And as you're very familiar with it, there are 3 green spaces,
and anchored by the beautifully restored courthouse. And thanks to the commissioners of previous group for doing that. And as you also are aware, it's the site of many, many activities that are important to Lexington and to the county, such as the barbecue festival. Here's the square that we are working with. It's the northwest quadrant adjacent to Conrad and Hinkle. As you can see, it's a relatively small piece of land, but it just is very important in the activities of the county. And is surrounded by very important retailers as well. And there it is some weeks ago. And it also, one of the situations is that it's not really very accessible, either visually or it is accessible by foot, but there are some barriers, and these shrubs are one of the barriers. It also hosts 3 monuments currently, as well as the kiosk, the information kiosk for the town and for the county. And that's the Davidson County History Obelisk, Captain Benjamin Merrill, and Daniel Boone Monument. One of the things we did with the group is I presented 8 small urban plazas. They're all different from each other, and asked the group's opinion. They worked in groups on this, and the purpose was not for them to translate this to the squares in Davidson County, but to look at these spaces and decide, are there interesting parts of these spaces? Is it a place that I'd want to visit? Would I want it to be in the center of my town? So again, not to say, oh, that's not going to work in Lexington. That's not the case. And so I'm going to show you the top 3 of these, the ones that they like the best. And this was number 1. And they really loved the water feature, not specifically that feature with that ornate of a fountain in it, but just the idea of a water feature in the middle of the space would be wonderful. They like this one because of the orientation. I think it really reminded them of downtown Lexington. It has that sort of similar scale to it. And they love the pavement in the circular formation and how rich that texture of the pavement was, and the clock in the middle. And this one, famous garden in New York City, Paley Park, they really were attracted to the water feature and shade in the space and how nice that would feel. Again, not translating it to Lexington. Obviously, that's not going to work in downtown Lexington. So our challenge was, once we talked about what kind of elements they wanted in the square, like what kind of programming elements and events they wanted to have, how to fit that in to that small a space, and especially at the intersection of 2 busy state roads. So we talked about the design principles that we were looking for. Of course, we want it to be very accessible, ADA accessible. We want it to be defined, but still open, without visual barriers, a very usable, relaxing space, and maintain a historical element to it. So then we talked about what specific things we wanted in the square, like benches and retaining the 2 willow oak trees. They wanted a little small performance area, decorative pavement to unify visually and enlarge the overall vision of the square, to be able to host music in the square, water feature. And the top things, and I'm not going to go through everything, but the top rated things they wanted were, number 1, eliminate the shrub hedge, because that was a big barrier. And number 2 was retain historical significance of the square, or at least to reflect it in the new design. And number 3 was have a water feature. So those were your top 3 vote getters of this group that came in. So this is our proposal, which is not very clear on this screen, but let's look at a little bit more closely. It really isn't very clear there. It looks a lot more colorful in the, yeah. So,
Bottom spaces are
Show
supposed
it
to
on
be
the
bright red.
TV.
wonder if this is the, yay, okay. So what we've got here is, in the middle of this is a water feature. And it was something like this, only the water jets would not come up as high, but it's at grade. We're not looking at a pool that will gather water and be a safety issue. In fact, you wouldn't even have to have the water on at times, particularly in the wintertime. There would be your holiday tree in the middle there. This water feature would be surrounded with some stone benches, rock benches, and in the center is a map of Davidson County with a compass direction points on it. And then the water would come out from the radius of the circle. The pavers around could be similar to that picture I showed you earlier with the textural brick pavers. And then on the outside would be another contrasting paver that would blend in more to the sidewalk. And this, you could see the holiday tree in this particular sketch of it. So there's that picture again with the textured brick paving. Another thing we talked about, and this is a pretty important piece of this overall design plan, but it's not absolutely critical, but we'd like to make this more of one space. Remember I said it was 5,500 square feet, which is pretty small to host all these activities. If we could use the streets that surround it, those are the city streets, the access service road, at times for events and open it all up, that doubles the space. It actually more than doubles the space that's available for those events. So in this particular cross-section, I'm showing what's called a Wiener type street, which is very common in Northern Europe, and it's becoming more common in the United States. So actually, if we did it here, Lexington would kind of be cutting edge in this part of the state. There's been one in Asheville for probably 30 years, Wall Street, you might be familiar with. But what it is a street that does not have a vertical change in it, like curbs. It might have a trench drain that accommodates storm drainage, but what you'd have is from the sidewalk into the plaza area would all be essentially at a smooth grade. You do have granite curbing there now, and it's hard to see here, but that is granite curbing right there. And the way this could be accomplished is to put pavers on the existing street that would bring it up to grade with the granite curbing, and it's relatively easy the way the dimensions of the street are right now. And then you'd have bollards or tall cylinders, not tall, but 3 feet tall, next to where the parking would be at times of parking, so the cars would not go into the plaza. It would also be that definition by the existing curbing that's there. It would just be at grade instead of a 6-inch curb. And you can see in this cross-section, the cars could still park right here and here. That's Conrad and Henkel or Visitor Center. And you'd still have the one lane of traffic. So that configuration would not change. It would just be the grade. This allows people with mobility issues to freely get in and out. They don't have to go to the corners to the ramps. It just becomes a much more fluid space. And this, if you're coming in this way, it's as if you're standing on West Center Street looking in, and there's your little water feature inside. Also proposing what's called festoon lights, and this was brought up by a couple folks that attended the public input session, that they'd really like to make this a more festive area. These festoon lights are small lights that are strung, and you've probably seen them in Raleigh. Salisbury has a street, Fisher Street, that has them on it. And they could be hung from a cylinder that's actually a piece of art that has lights within it that could be used to have different colored lights on different occasions. So you've got your art piece when the lights are not being used. You've got lights internally to make it even more festive at night, and the festoon lights, which could be up all the time or just part of the time. So I'm going to go back real quick, and then I'll open it up to questions. Back to this plan. It's, again, hard to see, but these are slightly raised, like 6-inch raised curb planters here on each corner, which would hold your monuments that you have now. So they'd be repositioned, but still there within this space. There'd be a monument in each one of these curbed planter areas. Now, we didn't talk about the curb bump out. This is something that would be on all 4 corners of the intersection. There would be no reason to do this on just one of them, so that would be more of a long-range plan to do the bump out. And what that would do is bring your pedestrians closer to the other side of the street, so when they're walking across the street, they've actually eliminated about 20 feet of their walk, and it becomes a much more pedestrian-friendly space. It slows down traffic in the square, and I think that's one of the primary goals of this, is to make it more pedestrian-friendly.
If we can leave it on that.
Yes,
side,
I will do that.
Okay. So I did want to say what I am asking for this evening as Uptown Lexington is basically we have a conceptual plan tonight. If you are agreeable to this conceptual plan, what we will do is the next stage in the process is to move forward to get estimates on construction prices, construction drawings, and then once we have all that, we still have to come before y'all, because basically whatever the maintenance of what we are putting in this, y'all would have to agree to. At that point, if something was too much or outside the realm of what the county was willing to maintain, we would then go back and alter those drawings. If, say, the water feature that we're talking about is too much, or, you don't want to take on the maintenance of that, that can be cut out of the plan. But we still do have to come before the county commissioners another time with the construction estimates, with the construction drawings. This is basically a conceptual plan of, do you like what we've come up with? In the public input process, our design committees worked on it. That's a little bit better of a color photograph, because this isn't showing up quite the best. Yes, thank you, Lynn. But we still have another stage in the process. This process tonight is I'm basically asking for your support of, do you like this conceptual plan? Do you want to move forward with this design, so to speak? So if this is the case, then we'll move forward with the next stage in the process, which is getting the construction drawings. Yes, Steve.
Chairman, got a couple questions. One thing, if we go with a water feature, is that something that maintenance could be, that Uptown could handle?
Depends on the cost. Fred, actually, in speaking to Fred, one of the things that he asked was the maintenance of the trees. A lot of people don't know that Uptown Lexington is actually responsible for the maintenance of the trees uptown. So we are the ones that hold the contract to get them trimmed. If something happens, we're the ones that put the lights in them. Basically, the trees were paid for, well, they were paid for by donations, but they're maintained by Uptown Lexington. So that's something we can possibly look at in the future, just depending on what the cost is. I'd have to see, same as I'm asking y'all to see, is basically I have no idea what we may run into, and it may nix the whole water feature, or it may, it may be okay.
Not the trees in the squares are not, those are just,
Question, please.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, you were talking about trees, so I figured she would clarify that, so.
I'm sorry, I wasn't done, I had another question. And then we can get back to that, Commissioner Crotts. I heard mentioned that we were relocating the monuments that are on the existing property?
Yes.
Did you make a place for the fallen officer memorial
We did.
that is to be
We
placed
did,
in this square?
in talking with y'all, we've kind of said, you know, hey, I'm not sure if y'all are going to do something new or if you're going to relocate something. So currently we have space for 4 total. We have 3 currently there. And, but yes, we have space. So you'll see the green spaces technically. We have room for 5, but let's not overcomplicate this. We have room for 5. So essentially, basically, you'll know the center of the square is now currently grass. We're basically inverting that, removing the bushes. Green space underneath the trees, the 2 on the far right of your screen are existing. We are proposing adding 2 more, varying in size, you know, smaller one at the front, maybe a little bit larger one at the back, eventually to grow much bigger than that. But at the moment, they will not match the size of those 2 existing trees. I can just tell you that now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to clarify that y'all maintain the ones on the street, but not the ones in the square. Is that correct?
The county gives us permission to put lights, Christmas lights, in the ones on the small ones on the squares, the ones that are basically right on Main Street. But we do not maintain any of the grass or the trees or the bushes,
Right.
anything in the square property.
So that could be something that we could talk about once we see the long term.
Yes.
The one concern that I do have going into this, is your bump outs, is that what you call them? Okay, so what I had talked to Rebecca about is in your cost.
Can you see the big picture down on the very bottom?
So, you can see it better on the plan that I just
Yeah.
printed out, the paper plan.
Yeah.
That it would be 4 bump out.
Right.
Eventually.
Well,
working with DOT.
and I would probably speak with DOT, just thinking about it, I'm not a DOT guy, but I'm thinking that it may behoove us to go ahead and do all 4 of them, because if you've got one that sticks out, just driving down the road, you may divert, you know, so if it's all matching,
Right.
it just makes it more symmetrical,
Absolutely.
and you may not have a problem. But that's just my thought. It'd be somebody at DOT to answer that question for us. But that's one thing I would look at. But other than that, I personally agree with it. I love the idea. I think it's wonderful. I think y'all put a lot of thought and effort into it. And hey, Lynn, it's got your pavers that you want. So there we go.
By the way, the rock benches are mine. Don't remove the rock benches. They're my favorite thing.
Tell me more about
Rock
the
bench-
maintenance of it.
I'm sorry?
Tell me more about the maintenance. I'm not quite understanding.
So basically, y'all already have some existing maintenance on these squares. You've got the maintenance of the trees, you've got the maintenance of the bushes, the grasses, the grass, the pine needles. Very minimal maintenance, but you have some existing maintenance. There will be, I mean, we're removing a lot of the grass. Well, we're not removing the grass, we're just moving it around, essentially. We're moving the bushes. That is the number one thing the public wants to see, is to remove the bushes. So the maintenance is basically going to change. If we put in a water feature, there will be some maintenance on the water feature, maintaining that, making sure that, you know, it's still operating. Again, that's why I say we have to come back and basically present the construction estimates and the construction drawings, because that may change astronomically. The water feature may be out the roof, and you don't want to incur the maintenance of that water feature. That's really the main piece of maintenance that this is really going to change, is basically the water feature is going to take the place of mowing the grass, maintaining the bushes, you know, putting new pine needles out. It may be more. I don't know. We really have no idea at this point until we go forward with this. This is just a conceptual design. It's basically saying, hey, if we had everything funded, if we had everything, the maintenance paid for, would you like the look of this in your square?
Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said maintenance. Maybe I meant construction. Who pays for the construction?
What
We
I'm
do?
what I'm planning to do at this point, so Uptown Lexington has basically paid for these conceptual designs. We have spent a chunk of change from our own bank account to do this. What we're doing moving forward, if y'all agree to this tonight, is I'm going to ask Lynn and Augie for a construction quote for the moving forward of this project. Uptown Lexington does have funds again. I'm not saying it's going to cover the entire cost, but Uptown Lexington does have funds again set aside for this project in its 2018-19 budget. I want to see this finished. And so I'm asking my board to put forward funds. At that point, if we get the construction cost or the construction estimates done and the construction drawings done, I want to go after a grant. I want to go after nonprofit donations. 20-some years ago, we were pretty much instrumental, outside of some of what the county gave and some of what the city gave. We raised about $1 million in private donations for the city streetscape project. We were one of the only cities to ever be able to do that. 90% of all the streetscape projects in North Carolina are funded by a grant, a DOT grant. But we were kind of one of the unique ones that were able to pull it together with private donations. That's what I'd like to do again. I've had groups, as far as either nonprofit groups or clubs and different organizations come forward. This is something that the public has wanted to see for a long time. And I think it's something that they want to see moving forward. We get a lot of excitement with this plan when we talk about it, when we say that we're moving forward. So that is my goal. That is my goal, is to get it funded by grants and donations. I can't promise I can do it. The thing is I may get, with the construction costs, I may go and get half of it funded and then have to stop because I can't finish it. But I'm asking for the next step in the process. And the next step is for you, hopefully, to approve my conceptual drawing so I can move to the next stage in the process.
What are you thinking this is gonna cost?
I have absolutely no idea. It depends on the size of the water fountain, whether we put 4 jets in it or 10 jets in it. It depends on the size of the tree we get or the kinds of the pavers we get. None of this is set. We've not done that process of picking out the different elements. That comes in the next phase. I mean, I basically went into this looking at it could cost me anywhere from $50,000 up to $1 million. That's the range that this could potentially cost.
This is, the water part is more on the concept of a splash pad, wouldn't it be?
It is.
It's not a fountain,
No.
per se, okay.
Well, there's little jets, low jets, but it's just sort of a cooling effect, a calming effect. And young
Got a
people
pump system
love
that
it.
just-
And I don't mean just kids, but young families, that sort of thing. I think it would attract that element, which is good.
What I think we had talked about was it would be one that it would shoot like out of a hole,
Right.
just a little, and then it would go like in another hole.
Yeah.
So it really wouldn't be a puddle or anything that you'd really want to run through.
No.
Just a calming, soothing effect.
Yeah.
So.
And it could be on
Would-
timers, so
yeah.
they don't come all at once, but here and there, and that's fine too.
But it would use minimal water, minimal power. So.
Mm-hmm.
So you would actually use stamped concrete here?
It could be stamped concrete, it could be some other material. We're gonna look and evaluate what will be the best material to use, the most cost effective.
Looks kinda like the design you got would probably be stamped concrete, yeah.
Very well could be.
Preferred for that, from what I see here.
Resistance and that sort of thing.
I think they're looking for us to tell them just go to the next step.
I love the concept. I think it looks great. I think it would be unique in Lexington, and I would like to see him move on to the second step.
Mr. Chairman,
As long as Rebecca pays gets the money.
Hey, like I said, I may get all the way to and can't do it, and then we have to back out. But I want to get to the next step. That's what I want.
I was just gonna say, the only thing you need from us tonight is permission to take the next step. I'm in approval of that. I went to your office the other day and you gave me one of the smaller handouts and I've been looking through it. It's, and of course, Lynn Raker has been heavily involved with our Fort York and Wilcox Bridge, committee. When she designs something, her and Augie, and when they put something together, it's gonna be done right. And, so what you're seeing up here, when it comes to life, it's gonna be a very good project. I just hope you can pull the purse strings together on it.
Okay.
Things always cost more than you think they will.
Like I said,
Unfortunately.
$50,000 to $1 million. I'm not prepared for it to hit $1 million. But
And I think your grant and donations and grants, I think that's the way it's probably gonna have to go.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We've got a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, cast your vote. That motion is to move forward.
Yes.
Right.
I'd say you're looking around 300.
300.
All of the votes are in,
300.
If you
and
want
that
to get
motion
real
carries
fancy.
7-0.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, next is, okay, the next is Cardinal report, presentation of bond, possible bond referendum survey with Zeb.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we had Sue Bullock do a survey of our citizens to kind of get us some feedback on some of the projects that we talked about, a possible bond referendum. Sue's here tonight to kind of go over the survey and to kind of discuss with you next steps, or, you know, how the board feels going forward.
Good evening, gentlemen, Commissioner and Chairman Shell, Commissioners. I want to first start out by thanking you and staff. This is the first phase of a three-stage process that you're going through. I want to thank you. I want to thank all your staff and the many department heads that met with me in this process, the community agencies that met with me, and most of all, your citizens who answered this survey. First phase of any bond issue is, in fact, research and putting that perfect package together. You've been at this in 2017 and in 2018. You have done that well. I have helped you do that. Your staff has reached out to the school boards and other agencies. And I think we have now arrived at the results of the first inquiry, the research portion of this. And I'm going to walk you through the surveys that we did and what their results are. Then I'm going to give you my opinion as someone who's worked many bond issues of what I think can happen. And then you all in your positions as elected officials have to sort of be the Solomon and decide what kind of packages, if any, you're going to present before the voters. That's phase one. Phase two goes to, if you decide to move ahead, to float a bond package for the November 18 election. The second phase would be your Citizens Committee that would do the advocacy and help further the education. And the third phase is the ultimate decision process of your voters on election day. You will have done your share no matter where you go from tonight. You have done a good job at research. Your staff has done an excellent job in trying to reach out and put this together. You have in your hands a booklet of about 17 pages. Raw data, you have transmitted to your staff approximately 400 pages of raw data. The questionnaires, and you own it all. I want to thank the Board of Elections who worked with us at the beginning of this process, and they provided us, out of your public records, approximately 10,000 voter households that we consider A1 voters, meaning they voted 5 out of the last 3 times. They have a record of voting consistently. We use A1 voters as a predictor of your leadership. They're the voters who are going to come to primaries and general elections, off-year elections, etc. They're also pretty much the decision makers that spread the word of mouth, or however, about what's on that ballot. We took those 10,000 names and had them married to long line numbers and cell phone numbers. In the past, we've been able to sort of do that with your own records, but because of security issues and other problems that exist now with hacking, that has to be done, or is the choice of the Board of Election to give out those numbers or not. We went to American Directions, our polling firm, and had those numbers matched. We then took 5,000 of those numbers and put them into a random numeric selection process. And those went into the computer as random numbers to be dialed. We put 5,000 in, and we used approximately 4,200 and some. That means that basically the numbers go into the computer dials you as a household from that particular universe, and when someone answers, the computer kicks in and the live interviewer comes on. Of that 5,000, of course, you have people who are not home, you have people who refuse to answer or answer that click and are not happy that there's a computer or somebody on the other end and hangs up. But of that, we got 500 completed surveys. We don't accept surveys that are partially completed. We also went online and provided to the community an online survey. We did that based on the request of staff and some of you. We don't rely very heavily on online surveys because they're self-selection surveys. We got 33 responses, and the 33 responses of the online poll have a different makeup and a different response pattern. And we'll get to that as we get through the first 500. And the process went very well. I was on the phone each night. I helped train the interviewers. I monitor their calls. And then when we're finished, we call 10% back to make certain that indeed we have the verification that interviewers were actually on those other lines, because I can't listen to everybody. We did this from March 5th to March 10th. Unfortunately, during that period of time, you had a couple of incidents within the county that may have impacted people's concerns. One of them, you had a criminal activity of breaking and entering and a violent crime, and you also had the hacking of your county's computer systems. We made sure that after we got the results on March 10th, that we verified everything again, because we wanted to make sure that our data had not been impacted in any way via your computer issues. And we're very clear that it has not, and I think your election board can tell you that they were secure all of the time. But because that occurred, one of the responses in terms of people's concerns were a little different. That really takes care of how we did the survey. Our report is in accordance in our process with the American Association of Public Opinion Researchers. I've been doing this for over 35 years as IORC. Prior to that, DeVries and Associates, we've done a lot of training, and some of you I know have even been on the phone for various surveys of your own. So that's the methodology. The sample matches within 2% the hard demographics of your voter base. And we're confident that the results of this survey, which is a snapshot in time, doesn't mean that I can give you a number and say, this is what's going to happen on November the 18th. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is for you as elected leaders to get the responses from your constituency as to whether or not you're headed in the right direction by the majority of your citizens. and by and large you are. I'll go through it in your booklets. I want to explain how to read them. On page 5, this is the sort of demographic and the screen questions. And you'll see on the right column, N 500, that means 500 is always the number of the universe, because that's our goal. We have 500 responses. The second column is the number that the computer assigns to the response. 1 was long line, 2 was cell phone. On the right-hand side, you will see the actual number of raw data and the percentage. So we had 325 long lines and 175 cell phones. Moving on down, we make sure that the demographics meet your voter profiles. So we ask these questions up front. We also know this information from the household information on the data set. 101 response was Dem, 2 was Republican, 3 was Libertarian, 4 was unaffiliated. You'll note that 25.6% were Democrats, 47.8% were Republicans, 1 Libertarian, and 26.4 unaffiliated. You move on down asking if they're going to actually vote and be registered. We know by their statement and by the household that we called that that household is a frequent voter host household. We ask the respondent who gets on the phone if they are registered, because we don't want to take a 17-year-old or someone visiting the household and find out midway down the interview that they're not registered to vote. So we ask that up front. If they say no, we ask for the next registered voter in the household who is above their age. And so that's how you get to all 500 of them saying that they are indeed registered and going to vote. Then to sort of loosen up the interview, we ask for their input in terms of what they think the most important issue is that you as county commission can do something about. And here's where the circumstance impacts what's said. Jobs and economy was highest. Crime, violence, and drugs was second highest. We know that that's not true. We know that crime and violence was an anomaly, or likely an anomaly, of what was happening during that week. And you have the power to check that out, because you can check with your law enforcement agencies and know the exact number based on the statistical report, et cetera. So that particular concern is probably much lower given a survey any other time. Education issues came next. Education issues has historically in this county been the top issue. I've done 2 other bond or tax issues where similar questions have been asked. It is the predominant issue. Jobs and growth is part of that, but education in 2005 was top. I suspect that it probably meets jobs and better jobs and economy. Jobs and economy don't mean that people are saying there aren't enough jobs necessarily. This indicates that in their verbatim responses, that they'd like higher paying jobs. They think the minimum wage laboring jobs need to have a wage raise. They would like to be able to work in the county with higher tech jobs. They would like, and they referenced your newest industry coming in, they would like more of those. So it's a wide range of what they expect or are asking of you in terms of jobs and economy. Taxes, taxes are always an issue, and the tax issue in this case was coming to the fore because of the federal tax bill that was enacted by Congress and proposed by Trump. And so many people were responding to that, indicating that they were looking toward their portion of that or that taxes were an issue. So that's a bimodal. It's positive and negative. Some people are talking about higher taxes as, oh my gosh, I don't want to pay anymore. And some of the people were talking about taxes in terms of, I'm waiting for my refund. And so those issues are part of that discussion. And I'm sure you heard some of that during the primary session, and those are some of the issues. Traffic, transportation. Here you have one of those damned if you do and damned if you don't responses. People are responding to transportation improvements, and people are responding to, oh my gosh, is there another yellow cone out there? If you look on the responses, some of the responses, as we will get to in the summary, folks were saying, there's a road going in everywhere. I can't get to where I want to get in the same 10 or 15 minutes. And that's partially a positive response because you're getting new road construction from DOT, you're getting road improvements, but to the common voter, it's also a hassle. And so they're responding in that way. Growth issues are, they're interested in organic growth. They're not so interested in forced growth. So they're interested in maintaining their lifestyle, the small community feel, the participation in rural community. They like that. By and large, your constituents are happy. They're not angry out there. They may have different opinions on different issues in terms, but they're not strident. Government officials, we're living in a time of approach to government that we haven't seen in the past, the holding of government accountable. And that's on both ends of the spectrum. You have some folks who are viewing government as that organization and that leadership that needs disruptors, needs somebody to shake it up. On the other hand, you're looking at a population that's also saying, I want to participate with what my government is doing and I want to hold them accountable. I don't want to throw them out. We find this in almost every general election cycle. So you're part of that. You've come through a primary. We waited because of my own schedule and because we wanted to verify that this survey had not been part of any malice or unverifiable documentation until after the primary was over. Because we don't want your bond issue, potential bond issue, or the issues in it to become a football, if you will, on a premature basis. Your voters are going to vote on whatever you put forward, and it should be in that same cycle. We tested each of the elements that I talked to you about in February, and we did them in alpha order. And then we went back and paired them with cost, and then we paired them giving examples of how they might be on the ballot. This result, this survey result you have, is the exact duplication of how it was processed while we were on the phone. Once we got through that question of issue and concern, we then went into the actual elements and we asked the question on the agricultural center, the community agricultural center, that also has elements of show yards and has some tourism value. And in that ask, votes for were 44% for, votes against 39%, not sure and or needing a lot more information 17%. And when we get toward the end, you'll see where those leaners go. We then ask about Parks and Recreation. And the first question on Parks and Recreation for the 7.9 million
Ma'am,
was, yes,
can I ask a question?
absolutely, anytime.
What is the other up there at the top where it says on the total responses? You get all these
Other.
percentages, but then you get other.
Other are, they need to come and take care of my roadway.
Oh.
I don't like the way they disperse thus and so, but they were responses that were personal to their own family.
Thank you.
And in the verbatims, which are also available to you, you can look at the complaints and or the positives, but it's almost a one or two-z kind of response. And, so-and-so didn't process my water bill properly kind of thing. So that's what other is. And you can go on and categorize that, but if you do, you're going to have ad nauseum that percentage of less than 1%. Any other questions? Interrupt me anytime. On the Parks and Rec, the repair and improvement facilities, the cost, and we always gave the cost, 7.9 million. 49.6 approve, 33.8 disapprove, 16.6, 17%, still don't know. They need more information. If you move on to the Parks and Rec and the Hughes Park facility for 3 million, and in the discussion on this, people seem to know more about the Parks and Rec bond issues and they seem to have more participation, and I know your committees have been working on this, so that's probably true. On this, 56.6%, and their responses, in addition to the yes, I'm for, no, I'm against, were things like, we need a place for graduations to be held, the same kind of supportive pitch that I was given by some of your staff members that had come out of the committee. So it is coming through in the education. 32% against, and 11.4, you'll see that drop in uncertainty. The 3 schools, repair project, roofs, heat, air, safety needs, 28 million. For 77%, against 14.6, not sure 8.4, and this is the one where when you look at the 33 respondents to the online poll, clearly folks were watching the online poll because that has 91% in favor of the school bond issues and Of those 33 respondents, half of them came from the Lexington area. And so you can see a correlation probably between people who are talking about issues and get online and answer the survey. So while those responses are valid, technically we don't count them in the count in terms of projections. What it tells me is that you have pockets of folks out there who have even greater interest in the school issues than in all of the others. And those people will come out to vote for anything that's on the ballot that supports their school improvements. In any event, that's the highest, 77%. Then you move into the infrastructure, water sewer issue, extension of the Davis-Townsend sewer line, benefits both the ag program, if you do it, and the community college, 56.2 versus 29.2, with 14.6 unknown. You then get into the major sports complex that you had the feasibility study done on, and people here are not certain of what they're looking at. They don't understand it. Even though you may have had a feasibility study done, the tie-in to how it benefits them as county residents is hard for them to understand, or that's what they articulated as side comments. And as you can see, that vote for, 27.8, and vote against, 58.2. Now remember, this poll has a margin of error of 4.3. So when I put out a number in percentage, it can be 4% higher or 4% lower. So when we look at the final, we want to be at a passage not only of majority, but over 54. So when we get there and we average things out, it will help you understand why I think what I think. The survey then continued on, and we changed tone, and we told them that we were going to categorize these into 3 bonds, 3 packages. And we did the packaging based on schools and those things that surrounded schools, the infrastructure with the community college, Parks and Rec, and we chose to put the Ag Center, which has a tourism-related benefit, with the major sports center, because it isn't all-purposed in terms of benefit to county residents. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we chose to do it that way. And staff and I talked about it. Schools and infrastructure, if you only put those on a bond package, 68.2%. That's well supported. 11% not sure, so you've got some education as to detail what that's for. Parks and Rec, if you combine those 2 elements, 50.2. Again, the not a vote against stays just about the same as on an individual basis, and you got 11% that you need to educate. In terms of this larger sports center and the ag building, when you ask them a question as a bond issue there, you get approval of 28.4 and disapproval of 55.2, with 16.4 undecided. Remember that when you asked the question of the ag building alone, that had 44% approval rating. So when you combine it with the sports center, it should pull up the sports center, but it really only pulled it up 1 percentage point here. So that leads me to a position that allows for a lumping together of certain elements. Then we told them what the total cost would be, including all of the bond issues, 89.7%, or 89.7 million. When you tell them the cost and you lump them all together, you have 40% approval, 47.2% opposition. Now, we didn't retest taking the sports center out, but we can look in the raw data and see that that is the weakest of the elements. So in looking at all of these, we want to look at all of the others in one package as it relates to the citizenry and what they get, that organic growth, and those things that are tourism related, which they may or may not want. But you are doing your job in presenting the information and material for them. When you go and you repeat and ask for leaners, and considering the cost, you get 42.2% in favor of everything, 49.4%, and you really need to look at this in terms of long-term benefit and how these numbers may change and will change with more education. Generally, when you're looking at leaners, and they're split 50-50 as they are here, when you educate folks, you're going to get sort of the same response, but they're going to look at the language in the bond issue. So if your attorneys do a bond issue where they understand that they're voting for X, Y, and Z, that they already have a propensity to approve, and you have done a multi-issue bond issue, not something for everyone, but something for the majority of your constituents that they can relate to, this is a very passable bond issue. Not necessarily passable if you lump the sports center in with the others. So that's sort of in the technical aspects of how you need to structure things. We'll go through the demographics, who the voters are, and those are known to all of you, your elected officials. I don't need to tell you what the demographics of your county are or who votes for whom or how. But if you want to go through that, you can take a look at that breakout, and this is done to make sure we have an accurate sample. We do it based on income, we do it based on ethnicity, we do it based on gender. And these are voters who vote 3 out of the last 5 times. These are your A1 voters. We then took the time, our interviewers, to thank those people in the households for staying on the phone for 10 to 15 minutes. And that's a long time at dinner hour. So they are due thanks from you and from us, and I think we did that. On the summary page, I've gone through a lot of this with the comments on each individual response. Again, crime and violence, I don't happen to believe that's a huge problem. Your education stands out as a major issue of concern and a major bond issue lead. Transportation, you can read the comments in terms of the constituent approval and disapproval. They like the new roads. They love being able to get somewhere more rapidly, but they hate the construction tie-ups. So that's something you can't do anything about. Your EMT services and other school services, the responses that that weren't personal were on those issues. Don't know, not sure. That is really a significant response, even though people deal with it as, oh, those people just didn't know. No, those people didn't have anything they were angry enough about or negative enough about to come through and say on a 10-minute survey, I'm really angry about, or it really concerns me. And so when we as pollsters and public opinion polls in nonpartisan polls look at that, we say, you got a pretty good rating because you have a lot of people who don't pick out a particular problem. They're not particularly angry. They're not particularly concerned. They're going about their lives as they do every day, and there's not a lot of angst. So not sure, don't know is a pretty good response. On page 15, you can take a look ranked by order, approve and disapprove, and this again gets back to what I would recommend go into a package if you're going to do it. Schools, parks and rec, sewer infrastructure, agriculture go into a unified bond package. Into a second package if you want to run it and have the voters vote on it, the issue of question, a tourism-related sports center. But I would take those two and do them in two different packages. And the multi-package, the multi-issue package, I would make sure is on the ballot first, and the tourism-related sports center second. If you do that, you will have not only explored all of the interests of your citizens, but you will have given them the opportunity to vote on something that you have done the feasibility study. The feasibility study said one thing, I may be saying a different thing. Or you can leave that off and run that at a different time after you've done more education and groundwork. Most folks' concerns with it aren't that it's a bad idea, but they don't see how it's going to benefit them, and they're afraid of the cost, maintenance costs, et cetera, to the county constituency for something they don't understand. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that came out of the survey. I'm happy to, if you average the positive schools, parks, rec, sewer, ag, you end up with 56% approval rating as it stands on the day of the survey, with your margin of error plus or minus 4, could be as high as 60% approval, or as low as 52, but it's a majority, and that's what you're looking at. But that is taking the sports center out of that multi-mix. Answer any questions, and I'll come back and sit down with any of you who want to go through raw data I did voter profiles in raw data. That's available to any of you through one of my greatest assets and help over here. Deb was most helpful in doing and setting up interviews as I went through the initial process, and has been available to answer questions, as has Deb and Casey. But she's the worker bee, and there all the time, every time I call.
I agree. I got a
Thank you.
question, Mr. Chairman, if, you're ready for questions. I was just looking at some of these numbers here. I guess, the way I look at it, probably the people polled would be 0.03% of our population, correct?
You have 106,000 or thereabouts voters, yeah. So 500 of that.
Okay. I'm looking at some other numbers here about salary. I'm looking at income, and that's what nobody likes to discuss when they take a poll, I'm sure.
It's household income.
Right. Looks like about 10%, close to 9.5%, 10% make over $125,000 a year.
Combined income, yes.
Is that pretty normal for,
It is where you have lots of entrepreneurial, and when you poll in rural areas, it's considered gross income. The question is gross income.
Mm-hmm.
So you have lots of businesses, lots of individual who indeed have that gross income, but that isn't what they live on.
Wouldn't part of your stuff, you said that you pulled ones. So ones meaning that they predominantly vote in most all elections.
Correct.
All right. So most people that would vote, or not most, but a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, they care more about who's in charge of their government, more so than others maybe. So therefore you would probably get more of that income bracket. Of course, 125,000, I mean, if you got two salaries, I mean, you know, one might make 70,000, one might make 65.
And many households have more than two people working.
Right. So,
it's not unusual, but A1 voters are important to you because
Absolutely.
they're the leadership.
Well, they're the ones that have the personality to get out and get their neighbors to go vote and say, here's why I'm voting for this person, here's why I want this, here's what I want that.
And that's right. And that's why I give you the caveat that this was a snapshot in time, the margin of error. In a general election cycle, if you look at the raw data, you will probably be above 52 or 56% in approval for those other items. And that Sports Center may come up because of the turnout issue for that general election. But I don't do polls based on what if, how could. I'd rather give you the baseline, in essence, sort of the more conservative evaluation, and have you going into this with eyes wide open than going into it based on something that has not yet been run by any voters.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm confused here. Maybe that's not anything outside of the ordinary, but when you look on page 6, what do you think the most important issues facing Davidson County that your county commission has the authority to do something about? And then we recognize this is your best voter pocket here. But yet 153, the most, don't even know what troubles them or what their concerns are.
It's why I said to you, that's really a sign that a lot of people in your county are pretty happy with what you're doing. They're not necessarily saying there aren't any problems, but they're identifying problems, and when they said that, they were identifying problems that you couldn't do anything about. And those are things that, to us as pollsters, don't mean that it's an uneducated electorate. It means that they're not holding you accountable for some of the issues that they see as issues out there. Some of them, example, said, highways. You're not responsible for highways, even though they give traffic and road construction a response by others. Most people know you're not responsible for highways. Most people that said, I don't know, I don't have anything, maybe healthcare, that went into other. They know you can't do anything about that. So it's a contradiction, because they are your A1 voters, but they also are, a lot of them, retired. The voting population with the majority of voters over the age of 50. And so they look at you with more clear eyes than younger folks do.
Here's one of the things I read from one of the respondents, and I'm not sure they're talking about the same place that I live here, okay?
Which one are you?
Says they're making roads all over the place.
I don't
know, you know, I mean, I'm a road builder and...
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was their perception. Remember, you're dealing with perception of people who see traffic and transportation as a problem.
I mean, I don't think...
It may be that your county road crews are filling gravel or culverts, and they see it as a problem.
It could be developments, housing developments.
Housing developments. There may be...
There's not a lot of housing developments here. I mean,
no.
Really, there's a few added here and there.
But this is one response.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It typifies sort of that negative, and it may be negative ideology on their part. They may simply not like growth.
It's similar to, there was a citizen in the county here in the last few weeks that complained about the road was just so horribly bad in front of their house that you had to get out of your car almost and walk to get to their house. I mean, it was just so horribly bad. I go down it and I found one little pothole in that whole road that was this big. Everything else had already been repaired, had been repaired for quite some time. But that one house said it was bad. So you run into that. But anyway,
well,
Mr. Chairman, I'm if there's
these
no
are
other
trends,
questions.
and we could go through every verbatim, but I'm not sure that even if we did that, you would have any more than you have by looking at the general consensus.
Thank you.
To come back, I appreciate the callback. We've been successful on the first two. If you do a third, I would love to try and help you with that. But with this, it sort of closes my window until you all make a decision where you're going to go.
Thank you. I'm gonna start at this end. Commissioner Barrett, you got any questions or anything you want, any statements you wanna make on this?
No, sir. I think it's very clear.
Okay. Commissioner Jarvis?
Good.
Good
job. Good job.
Thank you.
Good.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I have no complaint.
Okay. Mr. Crotts, anything else?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Now, what would our next step be, though?
What they're looking for, discussion to provide direction to staff on how next to proceed. So is there any recommendations from the?
We'll either decide when we put it on the ballot or if we put it on the ballot or not.
Well, we gotta decide first what we're gonna put on the ballot.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Do we need to move?
Further discussion?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's
But then we have to get a citizen group or something, don't we?
If you decide that you want to move ahead and place the item that's on the ballot, then after working with your staff, and especially your attorney, because he's going to have to uphold the deadline for presenting it to the local government commission to make sure it gets timely on the ballot, I would suggest that, yes, you go after and appoint from your positions co-chairs or a citizens committee leadership who can go out and bring together people from each of these elements to further educate those people on these bond issues. No matter what you put on, it requires more education. Your responsibility will be, if you go ahead and do a bond issue, to do a non-advocacy education piece on each item that tells what that item is going to be spent for. That gets disseminated through your tax bills, through whatever element you have to communicate with all your resident voter households. It is the next step that will further that piece in education, and that's the appointment of a chair or a leadership team who then goes out, like Max Walzer did, like it was done in 2005 in the appointment of a co-chairs for that bond campaign. So you have an advocacy group that's helping you bring information, and if you want to pass this, help you pass this by also advocating for it.
What's the deadline, Zeb? We went through this last year, year before last, or whenever it was.
I think we probably have to be ready to put, as far as the ballot part, be ready by August.
August?
Yeah.
Okay. When was the suggested discussion date?
Our next two meetings are June 12th and June 26th. I mean, if we did June 26th, it'd give y'all almost a
Yeah.
week to review the information.
Is that gonna be time to get what we do?
We actually have in the audience Don Ubell, who's done a lot of our bond stuff. He could probably answer those questions better. Could you answer a question for us, Don? Sure. He's been our bond counsel for the last couple bonds.
So, if you were to authorize, to authorize any question to be put to the referendum, you would need to do it in 3 meetings. There are steps that have to occur at 3 meetings of the board. They have to be separated in time so we can do publications of notices of hearing and so on. You have to be finished by mid-August in order to have the material to the Board of Elections so they can prepare the ballots. So it may require special meetings. I don't know what your schedule is over the course of the summer.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, so we need to set this for our nearest date, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Time's running thin.
Mr. Chairman, what's the cost for those services? Anybody know?
What?
Well, there's cost to move forward with her services, and then also I'm sure his services have cost. Nobody does anything for free.
Yeah.
We're gonna vote on it to put it on the ballot and then pay money to get people to advocate for it.
Excuse me, actually, I'm pretty much paid up except for tonight. And what is left due me will go directly to American Directions, but you won't pay me as county commissioners again.
Okay.
If indeed I am hired to assist you with the bond package, it will be the responsibility of the Citizens Committee to raise the funds to pay me.
Okay.
Your bond counsel, on the other hand, yes, you're going to have to pay. And so what your staff has in terms of an agreement with your bond counsel is really what you'll be paying for.
Okay, anybody have anything else, Commissioner Court?
Can I ask one other question, ma'am? If we separate all the bonds, I'm not trying to package them together right now, but if we separate all of them but the $40 million sports complex and we run that by itself, what kind of an influence or impact will that have on the other bonds? Will that give it a flavor that they're asking for too much, or what is your opinion on that?
Well, I never suggest that you run individual elements as individual packages. It is the nature of the ballot beast that once people begin to check no, it really doesn't matter a whole lot what's below it. It'll be a no. My recommendation is that you take and do a multi-package with those things that serve county residents, that you know serve county residents. And those are the packages of schools, infrastructure, in the ag center. The one that stands out that is the weakest, I would separate out from those other, and I package them as one. And if you keep the sports center in, package it as one. And place that bond issue of the multipurpose above, and the sports complex as the last thing they vote for in terms of referenda, and you may get it passed. But it is your weakest issue, and I would never suggest that you run individual issues, because remember, you're only going to get a slice of this once every 5 to 10 years. And so you want to maximize your values as much as you can. And we know by what the school system said here tonight that they could easily eat up $50 or $60 million on their own. So those are the things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that we run individual. What I was suggesting is that we run the $40 million one by itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where it needs to be run.
Absolutely is my recommendation, and that you run it, if you run that one, that you run it by itself with the others packaged and those packaged above it, so that they're already in a mindset to vote yes.
What you're trying to do is get the school
That's right.
education to
That's
take
right.
the rest of them through.
And based on your data, all the others were above 54%.
They could, with the leaners, they were certainly close, if not above.
So
yes.
if you package them all together, odds are it'll sail through.
Well, if you package them all together and average them, they're at 52%, which is a majority, but you've got a 4% margin of error. And you know that you have, of that, over 50%, 48% who are against it. And if those against voters become active against the whole package, you will lose the whole package.
It's just a poll.
That could
Ain't
even
everybody
go
got their
higher
crystal
without
ball.
the ag center in it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, put them
It's-
together.
It's my best advice, and if, I'm
ag
glad that
center-
I'm not in your position, because you are Solomon in the sense of what to put on the ballot.
Well, that's what I said originally, you put it all on there if you're gonna put it, and people either vote for it or they vote against it. I mean, it's the people's
Well,
that
if you,
decide.
I think that's true, Commissioner Yates, but if you lump the sports center in with the
Hey,
others.
lump them in, I don't say lump them together, I said put them all on the
Oh,
ballot.
okay, yeah,
And then
all right,
that's what I said
understand.
originally, you put each one of them on the ballot, and you're right, start at the weakest one and put it at the bottom, and they either start checking yes. I hope our voters are not checking just no because they start here and go no and they go all the way down. I
Well,
hope they realize.
the problem with individual placements on the ballot, it'll cost you more.
I know.
But it also doesn't bring people together, and that's what you need to fund through bond. You need a group of your voters to bond together to say, we need all of these things, let's go do it.
All right.
Okay, what date did you suggest?
June 12th?
We at least gotta get back.
Giving us time
Yeah.
to move forward if we have to have this 3 meetings.
Would that give everybody time to sort of come up with an idea of what they wanna do with?
I would think.
Okay, do we have a motion to move this? Do we need a motion? Or just gonna, put it on agenda?
we just received this, we just look at it again.
Just do a common consent.
Common consent.
Okay. Okay. Proposed statewide bond information to media outlets, Fred. Mr. McClure will lead this off.
Enough about bonds already, hasn't we? Seriously.
I don't know that the, bond package was even included in the budget, and now the way they set it up, there's not gonna be any discussion on the budget. So, I don't think that there will be any opportunity for that bond package to be a part of the budget this year. I think it's pretty much a done deal. It's not gonna happen.
Okay, well, so what's your recommendation on this here discussion? Does you need any further on it?
I don't see any reason. What we were gonna do was to consider what kind of an impact the state bond would have on the needs of our people, especially the school, to determine what kind of value bond that we would put on the education, but that bond's not going anywhere. So we need to take care of what we need to take care of and not rely upon the state at this time.
So the state bond's not going anywhere, the statewide?
I don't think it's in the budget. And the budget is, the way Republicans structured the budget this year, there's not gonna be any discussion.
Okay, all right. Continue discussion on opioid litigation. Chuck, you wanna lead this off?
Mr. Chairman, over the last 8 months, there has been an extended process by this board of research and learning about this public health crisis. And the investigation has taken several different forms. We started back in October of last year participating in a opioid litigation discussion webinar that was hosted by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. We participated in a second webinar back in January of this year. There have been several presentations that have been made to county staff or to the Board of Commissioners. Back on February 15, the Barron and Budd Consortium made a presentation to the board at the retreat. Two of the attorneys who were part of that presentation are present tonight, Mr. Whitaker and Mr. Swan. There was a presentation that was made to staff by a different firm, the Kruger Dickinson firm, back on February 20th, and then the board invited the Kruger Dickinson firm to make a presentation to the board back on May 3rd. There has been participation by staff in other networking programs or processes. I am a member of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners working group on opioid litigation. We met for the first time last November, and there was extensive discussion with regard to the opioid litigation at the County Attorney's Winter Conference at the School of Government back in February. And you have had the opportunity to review quite a number of articles and reports with regard to this information over the last 8 months. There has been information that has been provided to the board by both of the firms that have made presentations to the board. There has been an extensive amount of information that has been distributed by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. There have been several articles that I have forwarded to you from the Washington Post, from the 60 Minutes report, from the American City and County magazine, and from the North Carolina Bar Journal. And perhaps most significantly, we considered a report that was completed by the Chatham County Health Department in which they estimated the costs of the opioid crisis in Chatham County. That was forwarded to you by email back in March. So it's been, as I indicated, a process of research and learning. Following the meeting back on May 3rd in the presentation, there was a request that we put this back on the agenda for further discussion. I think at this point, there are two questions to be considered by the board. The first is whether the board wants to participate in the opioid litigation. And then if so, then who the board wants to retain to represent us in that matter. I spoke several times today with counsel at the Association of County Commissioners, and they have a list of counties that are currently participating, and it has grown significantly since we started talking about this in October. At the time that the first discussion took place, there were only 2 counties in North Carolina that were participating. At this point, the School of Government the Association of County Commissioners has numbers which indicate that there are 38 or 39 counties. That information may not be complete. The several law firms indicate that they have signed on additional firms. So you've heard a great deal of information, and other information has been provided. I think we come tonight to get some direction from the board as to where and how you want to move forward with this.
Could I ask you just one question?
Yes, sir.
I was watching Today's Show, I guess it was, on TV last week.
Yes, sir.
And the Attorney General of Minnesota, he was explaining why 25 states, including North Carolina, had signed on to this legislation. But I didn't hear the whole thing. That's 25, that's half. Is there a reason why the others hadn't signed on?
You know, that's probably a good question. When we had our forum at the Association of County Commissioners back in November, there was participation by both of the primary law consortiums that are representing plaintiffs in this litigation, and there was also a presentation by the North Carolina Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office at that time was working with more than 23. I think in that Today Show article, the Attorney General of Mississippi indicated he was working with a total of 23 states, and the Attorney General in North Carolina had indicated that they had more states involved than that. When we were talking last fall, the Attorney General was not encouraging counties to participate in bringing separate actions. I was disappointed, and I think I shared this with you in an email back on November 20th, that there was not a clear answer as to why counties should not seek their own litigation. Counties clearly have a source of damages which is separate and apart from the state. Counties also have recollection of how the tobacco litigation proceeded and how the proceeds from that tobacco litigation did not include distribution to the counties.
Okay. And now you were an attorney, so this is one of those questions that it's not a trick question. I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, sir.
Usually you don't ask something if you don't know the answer in public. But this is litigation that the county would be entering if they decided to join.
Yes, sir.
All right. When you go into court with litigation and something like this, you have to show
loss.
Yeah, but I don't know if loss is what I want to say.
Damages.
Damages. You got to show damages.
Right.
If we join, what's our damages? I mean, how are we going to show them?
Yeah, probably the best tool that I have seen at this point to estimate that is the Chatham County Health Department estimated cost of opioid crisis. And that was a document that I forwarded to the board back in March 26th. And in that document, they really did two things that were helpful to us. One, they took a look at their own costs, their own expenses there. And then they also took a look at a couple of different tools by which you could measure damages. They had several people on their staff who were very talented in this. If you look at a national level, the numbers are huge. According to the Center for Disease Control, when they look at lost productivity, health insurance, criminal justice, substance abuse treatment, the numbers there, 42 billion, 26 billion, 7 billion, 2 billion, that's just for 2016. So on a national number, the numbers are, on a national level, the numbers are so big to be staggering. Now, the two probably most appropriate tools for us to consider are one, Chatham County, in which they were coming up with hard numbers of just under $1 million a year, and their estimate was they could extrapolate from that up to $10 million a year. They could come up with hard numbers from the period of 2002 to the 2016. And forgive me, I don't want to quote this exactly, but it was in the teens of millions of dollars of hard numbers that they could establish there. There are really two challenges that I think have been, in talking with commissioners, have been of concern. One is causation. How do you find a link of causation between the manufacturers or the distributors and this public health crisis? And at our last presentation, you may recall that the attorney spoke at that at some length. And then the second element is proving damages. That is something that we are going to have to rely upon whatever firm we bring in to help us with, because simply put, we don't have the expertise in-house to do that. And I suspect very, very few counties have that expertise. But that's what actuarials, that's what accountants are for. And it's not unlike so many cases which go to court, which involve torts, in which you are trying to seek damages for a sum which is difficult to prove. Mike Swan is a attorney that does a lot of personal injury cases. Trying to establish a number on pain and suffering is a really nebulous idea, but that's what he does. And that's what he sells to a jury every time he goes into a courtroom. And he has to base that on both his experience and what he can sell, and by whichever argument he can make for that. Some damages are very clear. If Dale comes up and talks about the 6 new social services employees that the county is having to fund this year, and I think that there was an email that the county manager may have forwarded from Dale since the last meeting, and Dale talked about the significant impact that the opioid crisis has on child welfare, then it's pretty easy to take those numbers and apply it towards that. If Lillian comes up and talks about the public health costs that the health department incurs because of the significant medical bills that the county incurs for a patient who, as a result of his addiction, incurs, you were telling me about a patient who had a infection of the lining around his heart.
Yes, sir. In one case of endocarditis, it costs about $500,000 per patient. And that comes from using needles, the infections that they get.
So, we have how many of those cases here, I'm sorry?
Currently, right now, there's 3 people at Lexington Memorial. 3
people?
Yes, sir. That's what Bill James told me 2 weeks ago.
And I'm sorry, Lillian, I didn't mean to call you out, but And then, Larry, James also with EMS, and these are the easiest three departments to pull out, hard cases or hard experiences and costs that we incur. And Larry, has been part of the group that has met with, Dale and Lillian and myself in talking about, whether the county needs to or should proceed with this litigation.
And I guess kinda, that's my question that Don just had, just saying, we got 3 cases here in Davidson County, $500,000 apiece, is that what I heard? Who's paying for that?
Lillian?
Typically, if they have private insurance.
I mean, they could be paying for it with their private insurance or,
But, I believe Mr. James told me that these people were Medicaid recipients.
okay,
So it's coming through.
Medicaid.
Lillian, do you know the manufacturer of the drugs that would be taken to cure that?
I mean, it's a host of different things. There's a lot of antibiotics involved and things like that. And it's an extended period of a hospital stay. So again, as Mr. Fry was just explaining, you know, there are certain things that we can't do, whether that's staff time in the hospital, it's hard for our whole system.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I think a lot of things, nowadays cost a whole lot more money than they used to. My point behind the question is not really directed at you, but if we sue, and of course other counties are already doing it, states are doing it too, but the cost of their other medications, so the cost to treat that type of thing, the cost to treat a bee sting, the cost to treat insulin dependent diabetes, the cost to treat asthma is all going to go up. So we're, instead of 500,000, maybe it's going to be 525,000 to treat that one disease, because now they've got to pay for a lawsuit litigation over here. And you know, Mr. Swan, is it Swan? Swan. I think I can help with the answer to that. In order to come up with the cost of damages depends on the person's bank account. If somebody intentionally causes harm to me and they're worth $5,000, then I don't get anything. But if they're worth $500 billion, then an attorney's eyes get real big and they start shaking and getting excited because they can see a payday. Now, that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fry, you did explain to me what I wanted to know.
Okay, so what is your recommendation as far as moving forward with the litigation only?
Gentlemen, that's a political question for the board.
Let me ask,
Yeah, but I don't like to enter a case. That's the reason I pay you. I don't like entering a case. I'm standing to just lose everything. I need to have some direction as whether or not it's something viable or if it's something we don't need to look at.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to interrupt you or be premature.
Have already heard from him?
It's going to
Without
confuse
regard to who you choose.
We've already heard from two, and I want to be fair. I want to make sure that we're fair as far as what the people that we've heard from. I think we heard from you folks first, and we heard from the other. I'm afraid that if we open it up again, that really should be something that's referred to the board, that recommendation by our county attorney. Because I'm not a lawyer. You are. I need to know where we stand and we should move forward with it or if it's something we shouldn't move. Or politics don't have anything to do with it. It's how much money we pull out of the pockets of these citizens sitting out here. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
When we started, I was really opposed to it, really. I didn't want to get in it. But reading what has, I've heard from the different law firms, what I've heard from, Mr. Fry, what he's presented to us, sent us information. We don't want no choice but to join. I don't think. We about got to join.
Mr. Chairman, I think that you were asking me for my opinion with regard to the law firm, and if we get to that point, I'll be glad to offer or to tender an opinion to the board on that. First question, though, is whether the board and the county should move forward. As a practical matter, the concern about damages being carried over to other drugs or to other areas or flowing over, this litigation is far, far bigger than Davidson County. Whether we join in or not, there are going to be effects that at this point are not easily predictable. But what we can say is that if we don't join in, then we don't have the opportunity to share in any recovery that is obtained. Now, others, and quite a few others, are going to proceed with this. There are different theories, there are different reasons for doing so, but one of the perhaps advantages of having waited for 8 months is to see that this is not just Buncombe County, this is not just New Hanover County, but this is well on its way to being a majority of the counties in North Carolina. As was explained during the last presentation, this litigation and the multi-district litigation is moving forward at a rapid pace for litigation. And it is very likely that within the next year, there will be some resolution either by settlement or by certain cases, certain key cases in other states headed toward trial. You asked me my opinion, and for what it's worth, let me caveat this by saying it is my opinion that this is a decision that the board has to make, and it's a political decision based upon your best judgment on all the information that you have. But
you're the best information I have.
My recommendation would be
that's scary,
consistent with what Mr. Swan probably told me 8 months ago. And that was when we were talking one day on the phone, he said, I'm working with this Baron Budd firm, and I really hope that you go with us. But if you don't, it's important that you go with somebody. And I agree with him on that.
Well, that was the answer I asked for.
Yes, you do.
That was the answer I asked for, what your opinion was on this.
Well, it took me a while to try to pad it as much as I could.
Okay.
One of the things that there's not been half of the counties identified as being on board with this. There's only been about, according to the NCACC, that the information that they have is about 38 to 40.
I've got,
represent 52 counties.
I've got a list here.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
okay. I'm not arguing, but it's not all of the counties.
Right.
One of the problems that a lot of the counties are worried about is who's going to get the money, whether the state gets the money or whether it's going to come to individual counties. And we have been assured, I think, by both of the firms that the individual counties will get the money. But I'm not sure that they have the authority to say that. I think that the judge or whoever makes a decision can dole it out to the states if they want to. If it does go to the counties rather than the state, the individual counties that do not participate will be cut out. They will not get anything. The thought before was that you could just ride this thing out, and if it was successful, then you would get a benefit whether or not you joined the litigation. That was a belief that I held for a while, but it's been, from the information that I have gotten, that is not going to be the case. That the likelihood of counties that don't get involved in it one way or the other will probably not benefit. We'll probably not get anything back. I had a question in looking at something that I was looking at. It looks like there's a 45% fee.
That's why he's excited over here, jumping up and down, waving a thing over here.
No, sir, I think there was a proposed contract or a draft contract that was provided to us following the presentation earlier this month by the Kruger Dickinson firm. And do you have that document in front? I think there was a copy left at your place.
Yeah, I believe it, do you?
Yeah. And I think that's maybe what...
Down on the second page, it says 45%.
No, sir, that was how the the fees were going to be split between the primary firms.
Oh, okay.
To that.
Okay.
No.
So the contingent fee that it talks about of 25% would be the amount that the firm would get of our award.
Now, I believe there are different fees that are charged by the two firms that are being considered by the board. But the contract or the proposed contract that you have a copy in front of you speaks about a contingent fee of 25%.
There was some discussion that we had about how they would come about, some of the expenses that they incurred.
Yes.
And one of the questions that I asked, I believe, had to do with our county, be lumped in with counties that's twice our size, or would our county be out separate from that? And I don't know that I ever really got a real clear answer on how they were gonna do the expenses. It seemed like what was said is they was gonna take all the expenses and set it out against all of the settlement, but I may be mistaken on that.
I'm sorry, I was going back now and taking a look at the draft of the contract that is.
Is your comment, particular to your firm? If it is, we don't wanna hear it, but if it's something in general, go ahead.
No, wait a minute.
Well,
Do what?
Well, I mean, we open it up to the public. I mean.
Well, if he's answering a question that will help us make a decision. That's what I said. If it's particular to his firm, we don't wanna hear it.
Well,
If it's not okay with the board, then we can't do it.
Maybe the chairman might not want it.
Well, I think, you know, before we proceed in that direction, if you do have something, again, I think we need to identify it with the county attorney to make sure we stay in the realm of what's fair and ethical.
This is completely within the discretion of the board and how you want to hear that.
But if we open it up, then we're gonna have to open it up again and have another date set for the other firm to come in and have a response to that, and it's gonna be back and forth. So we've got to have some kind of a system of fairness here, or it's not gonna be fair for one party or the other party. So we're not gonna have any public discussion as related to the specifics of a firm tonight.
Do we have a copy of?
Because it wouldn't be fair to not offer that to the other firm.
Of the.
Address that.
I don't have one with me
If you got something that is in general to a response to a question being asked, I don't have a problem with that.
It is, Commissioner Shell.
Okay.
And I will do my level best not to speak about our fee contract. It is we don't know no one knows that answer, first of all. It is my supposition, however, that there cannot be a fair apportionment across the board of litigation expenses if you assign on an equal weighted basis expenses for Mecklenburg County with Pasquotank County. First of all, you're not gonna be able to get an agreement if you do that. No one's gonna get an agreement. So it is my supposition that it will always be some level of fair, proportionate division of those expenses. And probably, I don't know it, but probably you would look at the population and apportion expenses that way. For instance, if there are 3 bellwether trials set for trial March 18, 2019. Summit County, Cuyahoga County, and Cleveland. If those are the only trials that are ever held, and they generate a lot of expenses, just those 3, but then the defendants come to the table and say, we want to try to settle everything globally. Those expenses would have a proportionate division across the board, and each county would be looking at a singular dollar figure for settlement. Less expenses proportioned out is my supposition. I cannot imagine that it would ever settle without that approach.
Because no Davidson County is going to pay the kind of expenses that are required to try one single case tried in Cleveland. You're not going to agree to do that. So you can't get a settlement without being equitable in that division. And hence, I don't think I think it's a great question, but I don't think that at the end of the day, in a settlement situation, that will be an impediment.
I don't think that anybody really knows at this point in time, because everybody says it's a muddy question. I don't think anybody really knows exactly how it's gonna be handled or where the money will go. You can say it goes to the county, but if somebody way above your head who's sitting in the judge's seat says that we're gonna settle this and we're gonna send X amount of dollars to the states, then we're back in the same situation we were with the tobacco thing, because we're not gonna get anything on the county level. You know, the thing that bothers me, I guess, about the whole thing is if we don't get in, are we cut out? If we do get in, are we in? We are, I know that, but then how much are we in for, so far as our expenses are concerned? So, I mean, you know, I'm just giving that as general information.
Well, the disbursement is always concerned me as to where the money we end up and who will be charged. Would it be per capita? Would it be the amount of monies that what this county can generate as far as this is our cost versus this county? Will counties end up getting monies that weren't even involved in the action if it's dispersed by the state per capita? I mean, those type of questions still, to me, remain unanswered.
And they cannot be answered.
And I agree.
Right.
I agree. I don't think they can either, but
as even Mr. McClure
it's hard to make a decision when you don't have that information.
But I guess the one certain thing in all of this is that based upon where we are today, if we're going to have the opportunity to participate in any disbursement, we got to get in the game. And things could happen that could preempt our involvement in litigation. You know, the state could come in at some point and say counties can't bring actions. You know, if there is going to be any recovery, it's only going to be to the state. And we could find ourselves out of it again. But today, we're in a place where it's timely to decide if we're going to proceed. Now,
okay, are we proper, if we decide to move forward with this, would it not be, are we the most qualified to choose who we want to represent us, or would that be your job? Decide who you best work with?
I'd be glad to tender an opinion on that. Now, I would also say that there are two firms that have incredible expertise.
Oh, I agree.
Very good lawyers. And I don't think there's a bad answer there. Mr. Whitaker indicated a moment ago that the majority of North Carolina counties now have signed engagement letters with the Bear & Bud firm.
Could I clarify?
Yes, sir.
They've either voted by county commission to hire us or contracted.
Okay, thank you. Because I think the Association of County Commissioners is a little bit behind in their numbers. When I talked with Amy Basin today, they were having about 38 counties that had gone with one firm or the other. I'd certainly be glad to tender an opinion to the board, but at the same time, you've had an opportunity to hear those presentations, to see the materials that have come out, and ultimately, you are the consumer here. You're the one who's buying a service, and you're buying a legal service just as we buy other services, whether it's for bond counsel or to get help with a referendum. And so I don't think that that's a decision that you want to totally dismiss to someone else, even someone as well qualified as me.
Well, no, it's not that I want to dump decision off on you, but I do want some input.
Yes, sir.
You know, because you're the one that joined the association team first and went down to Raleigh, and we depended on you to handle that matter. And so now I depend on that information to come back to me, and then and say, well, you answered a while ago the question I asked you originally when you didn't want to answer, but you just answered.
And I've heard the presentation now of the Bear & Bud team twice. once by their national team in Raleigh, and then second by local council when they presented to the board. I've heard the presentation by the Kruger Dickinson team 3 times, by the national team in Raleigh, and also when they came here and met with staff, and then finally when they came and met with the Board of Commissioners back on May 3rd. So yes,
So, do we need to vote to move forward?
Yes.
And maybe give you a little time to confer with us to decide, then let's work this thing out together?
I think at this point, it's appropriate for the board to decide if you want to move forward with this.
Okay.
One last point, that they were talking about causation, and there has been some established, whether or not it'll hold up in court is a different thing, but, if it doesn't, and if they throw the whole thing out, the cost to this county is 0, is that correct?
That's the representation that has been made to us.
Well, that's if we put in research and put in time and effort and all that into this, we could have tens of thousands of dollars tied up into it, then the state, come in and say, nope, sorry, you're done. Thank you for your information. Thank you for putting your time and effort into it. And that's it.
As a practical matter, the county already has some skin in the game.
That's right.
If you forgive the phrase, but because I have spent some time with this, Dale, Lillian, Larry, we all have spent some time, and of course the county manager's office have spent some time working on this. At this point, that's absorbed within the expenses of the county, but that, as Mr. Kratz has indicated, that has the potential to certainly of increasing.
The other skin in the game that we got is what the cost to EMS and our health department and our law enforcement folks of this opiate epidemic that we would be not put in a position to recoup if there was a possibility of recoup.
Well, here's my thoughts on it. While I understand the county's cost, the citizens of this county, their cost to the opiates, the opiate issues, the crime, the EMS, the rescue stuff that comes through here, how many people have been hit with Narcan to save their life. I see that. I've talked with the same people all the time. But I also remember, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. We got all this change coming. We got this stuff coming on here with the drug stuff. And I know how business works. And if I've got to pay out $500 billion over here, well, I'm not just going to pay it out. I'm going to go over here and increase the cost of my other goods over here to offset that $500 billion. And it might be another $300 billion where maybe they've paid another legal fees. So whatever it is, they're going to put that cost back onto the consumer that is already paying astronomical parts. Yes, I understand it's bad. I hope that maybe some people can go to prison for this. It's horrible, but I don't think this part of it is right. Now, that's just my opinion of it. I don't want to see little Johnny not getting his medicines because the cost of insulin went sky high.
Well, we've been talking all night about how much money we're gonna make and all that stuff. And the big thing behind this is not the money, it's to stop this epidemic of opioids.
Well, we can do that without suing them.
Money is the secondary thing.
I'd like to make a motion if you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not get involved.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion that we'll not get involved. And we got a second. Okay, cast your vote.
Wait a minute.
Yes means we do get involved, no means we don't.
No.
No.
The other way around?
Yes supports the
Just
motion
wanted
that we
clear.
do not get involved. Yes supports the motion, we do not get involved, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, you say yes supports the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's something I got for a little bit of discussion there, and I don't know if the fella, you ready for discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah.
If the fella that made, or the commissioner that made the motion would be acceptable. I don't know that I'm ready to make the decision now, but I hate to put, of course, we can bring it back in front of the board at any time to vote for it at some other time. Don't know if they would be in a friendly amendment for something later, or you just wanna go, with the exact no? Because like I say, there's not enough information for me at this time to make a decision on something this important.
Commissioner Yates, I believe we can actually bring this back up again at even the next meeting if, new information arises. Is that correct, Mr. County Attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Just one thought to answer, and I've had the same thoughts that Zach's shared this tonight. I've heard it from other people as well. But it's repositioning money is all it's doing. Because what happens is the money that it's costing us to treat opiate addiction, the tragedies that are hitting families every day, that cost may end up, and it probably most likely will, just like you said, they'll raise the price of those drugs, the legal drugs, the prescription drugs. But it's not a total loss, because hopefully the action that will take place with those pharmaceutical companies will offset some of that cost. But I mean, who's to say? Who has a crystal ball? I certainly don't have one. I just want it fixed somehow or another. But yes, supports the motion. Do you want to amend it, or do you want to leave it as it is?
I'll withdraw my amendment. I'll withdraw it. No, sir. I'm good with the way you've done it.
We'll just leave it. Is everyone voted? All right, yes reports, in, no means?
In means proceed.
Yes means stop and no means go.
No.
No.
Yeah.
The only thing that, at this point, the motion is that we not get involved.
That's correct.
Yes means we not get involved.
That's correct.
A no vote doesn't mean that we get involved. There would have to be a second consideration by the...
That's right, yeah.
Start me off with zero again, I voted twice now.
You ready for another vote?
Did my vote come in?
Don, did you switch political parties on us?
No, but I'm gonna vote against it.
Democrats vote for us, right? He said he voted twice.
I hadn't voted yet. I didn't know whether we was gonna vote or whether we was gonna pull this thing. I'm like Commissioner Yates. I don't think there's enough information for the board to make that decision, but I'll make mine. Did you get that?
I got yours, Commissioner LaFleur, yes.
Who else you waiting on?
Commissioner Scholl.
Oh, I thought I done, it's four times.
This the fourth time?
Maybe when you hit it, you just be.
They got it?
No.
That's the Russians. They've messed with it.
That's good?
No.
All right, Don, you wanna use mine? It's right here.
That may be it where it got hit a couple of times.
That's it right there, isn't it?
No. Just that one.
You got it this time?
No.
Got it.
Do it by voice.
You don't have it.
We'll do my voice.
Voice vote.
Last time I had to try it without hitting the C.
What are you hitting this one for right there?
I mean,
I've been hitting them all, no, it's second.
try it without hitting the C.
Voice vote. It's on the screen.
Are we supposed to hit the C now, Debbie, or not?
Yes.
Okay, you're supposed to hit the C.
I got it.
Yeah, I just watched him. He did it.
Okay, I've got a blue light. I don't know, it may have locked up where buttons were hit. Do it verbally?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Crott.
Yes.
Commissioner Jarvis.
Yes.
Commissioner LaFleur.
No.
Commissioner Yates.
Yes.
Commissioner Scholl.
No.
Commissioner Barrett.
No.
Chairman Shell.
No.
We have 4 noes
Or 3.
and 3 yeses.
That's just to the motion, the way I understand it, we could still proceed if we feel it necessary to proceed. It doesn't slam the door on us, is what, that's the main thing I was.
This motion didn't pass, so
That
you,
motion passed. No, the motion failed.
motion failed, so that
Motion
means
failed, yeah.
move along with the, unless there's another motion, I mean.
No,
If you're gonna do anything, if you're gonna make a decision tonight, you have to have another motion. If you're gonna do what, you suggested, and that is to get some more information, we don't have to have another motion for that.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly can redistribute to the board the information that has been acquired over the last 8 months. I think part of the problem tonight is that it has come in bits and pieces over that time. And I think there is a great deal of information that has been provided both by the two law firms, by the Association of County Commissioners, and through the other articles. And if you want to see that, if there's a perception that we need to revisit that, I certainly can redistribute that. If the board is otherwise, if the majority of the board is otherwise ready to proceed, then it would require a motion to the contrary, that the county participate in the opioid litigation.
Okay, the way I understand the vote was that this leaves the door open to study what you're just saying we need to put together and study?
It leaves it open to study, but it also leaves it open if the majority, with regard to the last motion, decides that they want to proceed with participation in the litigation.
And then we'll have another motion and we'll have another decision.
And that can occur tonight.
And that's, I agree with Commissioner Yates when he said that we don't have enough information to say no right now.
I think
don't have enough
all the
information to say yes
at one
right now.
time might help.
All right.
I'm talking about as far as moving forward, not through the motion.
Yes. It has been suggested that, I think by at least several of the commissioners, that they would like to have more information. I'll be glad to share what we have put together, and I'll also be glad to be available for any questions individual commissioners may have and try to distribute those responses to the board. If it's truly a need for information, then information we can provide.
And I think at that time, we probably need to have a pretty good idea of how we're going to proceed as far as if we do proceed with the action, who we're going to proceed with.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Number next.
May I ask one question? Mr. McClure?
Are we still in public comment?
I understand that the last time that Mr. Winter and I were here, we didn't address the merits of the law firm's expertise and experience. I have a short memo here. The second page is just a list of counties. I'd like to be able to leave this with the council and decide whether you want to look at it or not. We're not trying to reopen.
I think that's very reasonable.
Certainly.
Yes.
And any information that either of the firms have provided, I have forwarded to the board.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Encouraged to be in here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mark.
No easy matter to deal with. John.
No, sir, it's not. It's not. Okay, next is, request, Debbie, discussion on requesting assistance from legislative delegation for local bill regarding publication requirements.
Yes, Commissioners, on May 22nd, I was going through the legislative reporting service and realized that the local legislators for Rockingham County have filed House Bill 990, which allows Rockingham County alone to participate with Guilford County in a pilot program that allows them to publish their notices electronically versus having to do them all in the newspaper. It would require the board to adopt an ordinance that would direct that the publications be done in the online versus in the newspaper. And there are certain criteria that we would need to follow. We would need to publish a notice in our local newspaper at least once a year that tells folks how they go about publishing notices or how they go about, not publishing, but finding notices. We would need to keep a notebook that has all of our legal notices in it. They would have to be published online with the same rules and regulations that we have to follow by using the newspapers. But I put in our agenda item, I had Jane Kiker do some research for us. Over the past 3 years, in 2016, the county expended over $19.8 thousand. In 2017, we were over 25.2 thousand. And in this year, we have expended over 25,000 just in legal notices that we're required to run pursuant to statute. And we've asked for this over the past several years whenever it's come available. And in the past couple of years that it has been tried to push through the legislature, the newspapers have come out and tried to squash it because it affects their bottom line. But since Rockingham County has come back out with their local legislators, I just thought it wouldn't hurt to get back involved again this year, to ask our local delegation to do a local bill on our behalf to add us along with Rockingham.
How'd that cost is passed on to whom?
It's ultimately passed on to the citizens.
Okay.
Because it comes out of our budget. I did check with Mr. Corman, and only a small portion of what they actually expend out is passed along as part of the application fee. They're by no means getting the money back.
So
it's not the applicants paying it, it's basically the taxpayers that are paying for all these publications.
David, what about the 5 or 6 pages each year that,
That is not included in here, and we would need to do some research on that to see if we would be allowed to do that.
that's the tax?
The delinquency notices, Jane did not include those in here because I wasn't sure whether or not those would be part of our publication requirement, because I don't know whether that's necessarily, I don't know how that's required.
So you don't know if
we could
there's
do some-
statute there that demands
That's
that,
right, we could do
okay.
some research on that to see how we would go about it, but the legislation that for Guilford County is several pages long, the new local bill is only a couple of paragraphs long. It would allow us to do everything that Guilford does if we get this local legislation passed.
You mentioned the
It would
ordinance.
require an ordinance by the board, so you could tailor what we are authorized to do and what we still have to do in the paper.
So it wouldn't be totally controlled by the legislative statute?
Correct.
We'd have to do our own independent ordinance
You all would
requiring a
enact an
public hearing?
ordinance- You all would enact an ordinance that would authorize what we do and what we don't do.
I understand High Point is looking at it right
Well, I
now
think
too.
it
Well, High Point's
saves us
part of
some
Guilford,
money.
so
It
they're
does-
already
meets our
in.
criteria.
They were authorized
We've
to
been
do it
trying to get
last
this forever. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Do I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
The NCACC
Second.
has this as one of their legislative goals, and we can approve this at pretty much any time, but I'd like to find out what the NCACC position is, whether or not they have a shot at this for all of the counties or not, before we pull a list and vote on it for an individual county.
There were a lot of counties that tried to get involved the last time, because we went through the NCACC, and everyone but Guilford got shot down.
Have you checked with the NCACC to see where they are on this?
With this legislation coming out on the 22nd, I just wanted to take advantage of the meeting that we're having today and not waiting another couple of weeks. I sure can do
Just a
that.
local bill.
Specific to Guilford and anybody that's able to join on.
They can run their own local bill
Yeah,
or
I've
whatever.
already voted, and I've already seconded it. And,
Got a motion and second, cast your vote.
my clicker's working over here today, Don. It was me last time, buddy.
We're
Wait a
missing
minute,
one
that's
here,
right.
that'd be affirmative, wouldn't it?
Pardon?
Here he is. No, you vote.
Did mine work that time?
It did. Mr. Yates, could I have your vote?
If you didn't
I done voted once.
Yeah.
All the votes are in.
You switched clickers with me, didn't you?
Should change my name.
And that motion carried 6-1.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute, don't we have something about a fox?
We've got one
And,
more.
and,
Do we?
yeah, it's not on here, but we got,
Hunting
another
and
one.
trapping.
Are you running this one too, or is
No,
it?
it is, this is Commissioner Crop.
Okay, Zach?
It's not on my place over here, is it?
About a fox.
Jay.
Fox
Oh,
hunt.
no, I'm talking about the resolution part, or you just wanna talk about it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Hold on, let me pull it up.
this is on the fox and the trapping.
Yes, I know, but there's not the written part about it, but anyway, I can just tell about it. Davie County and Forsyth County, has created a local legislation to allow for fox and coyote hunting and trapping. Those dates to be set by the Wildlife Commission, but to allow for that, and I know we've had a lot of concerns here in our county with coyotes and not so much foxes, mainly coyotes. So I thought, hey, if it's a local bill in Davie and Forsyth County, we border both of those, why not jump on that as well and allow the Wildlife Commission to set those dates, to allow for hunting and trapping, those wild animals.
Does it mention anything about the disposing of
that's
carcasses?
That's already came. to
Yeah,
us.
it's already been up here before. We've already looked at that, and it's, there's, open on coyotes, so you don't need anything on that. And, I think they said something about foxes. I can't remember exactly what it was, but,
It was in here.
All the hunters were in here.
but we've already seen this once. And we had the wildlife here and everybody else explaining what the issues were. Before we do anything on this, we need to investigate a little bit further what Davie County's doing.
Okay.
Because
We got a problem, but if
like
it's
I
already been
said, we've
addressed-
had it in here, people can go out and hunt coyote or shoot them, or trap them, or pet them, or whatever they wanna do. It doesn't make any difference with coyotes.
Before that, the
Hey,
concern-
Fred, I'm gonna trap one and let you pet it. How's that?
Okay, I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll pet it one
A
time
second? All in favor?
with a big club.
Can't shoot 'em in the city.
Debbie?